I might stream it too. Is that okay?
Oh no, that's fine. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. I've been away for a while. I was out sick for a decent amount of time. No, it was not COVID. It was good old fashioned influenza plus something else. Still not exactly 100%, but I'm getting better. Anyway, so I've missed quite a bit of content. Tom Rabbittt, whose his content I frequently mine. Unabashedly, is joining me here for this discussion because I don't know if this is kind of unusual for JRobin or not, but JRobin took a run at PineCreek on PineCreek's show night before last, and I think it's fair to say he kind of biffed it, maybe, um, without giving away too much. He comes at him pretty strong, starts going at PineCreek pretty hard. And I've got it queued up here to go. So if you go to PineCreek's channel, he's actually got 2 videos of this. So I'm actually taking it from the original source, the segment from the video when JRobin called in. Doug did a video where he did like a snippet where he does like a word counter every time JRobin uses. I think it's the word rational or irrational, whatever in whatever way, but. So that video's out there too if you want to take a look at that one. That one's been edited a little bit. I wanted to play this segment in its totality, so we'll just be reviewing that. So, Tom, if you're not like busy with like wires or settings or something, I was kind of surprised. But why you're interested in setting up with this? Has it been a while since you've talked to JRobin?
Yeah. Well, it's been about 3 weeks or so. I made a video recently, and I talked to JRobin, and he was demanding one of his questions be answered, and so then I answered it, and then he said, and then I was like, so what's the response? And he was like, oh, I'm not talking to Tom. And then later on, like a few days ago, he was like, why doesn't Tom come in here and talk to me? I was like, what, are you kidding me?
This was on Clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
So I should say the week before, I think it was this. Yeah, it was. I think it was the week that I got sick. I got sick last Saturday. I think it was just a few days before the weekend. I went into a room on Clubhouse, and it was run by, I'm assuming she's a Christian. She goes by the username Pandamonium. And she had this room going, and I know Antonio and JRobin were in there. I can't remember if there was any other Droogs in there. I think Matt Yester might have been in there for a minute, but I don't think he hung around. But she had the dumbest, this goofy ass. I don't want to go into a long explanation, but I'm trying to I basically try to give a explanation, a quick one, like based on my previous experience as a Christian, as to why I think like the setup to her little statement doesn't really ring true. And it turned quickly into the Antonio and JRobin try to tear an atheist apart hour. Like they were talking over her. They weren't letting the host ask questions. And I'm like, look, can you guys like shut up? Because she's asking me something, and I'd be like, no, you're going to answer me, spatchcock. Like, I don't know which one of them wants to date Panda, but it was very performative. Which one of you, when one of you beats me, do you win her hand? Like, does the other one have to look on like a cuckold? Just it was a weird display. So that was my last exposure to JRobin, and I was like, wow, he really seems like somebody like, I mean, because he's always been kind of a rapid fire straw man type guy. Like you'll say something to him and he'll come back with a response that's just like, you didn't listen to a word I said, because that has nothing to do with what I said. He reminds me of Veckel. Veckel's notorious for doing that. Veckel, I've actually agreed with a point that he made, and he came back and attacked me and refuted his point to tell me I'm wrong. And I'm like, I just agreed with you, you simpleton. So, and JRobin, I get the same kind of thing from JRobin. Like he's so eager to like prove you wrong that he's not watching his step. So
I mean, it really shows what their motivations are here. This is an interesting video for a couple of reasons, but Oftentimes he'll be on Pal Talk, or sorry, not Pal Talk, Clubhouse, and they'll just be talking about mundane stuff, and he gets frustrated. He's like, okay, let's stop this. Can we get an atheist in here? Because he's got this need. He needs to own the atheist. Like let's stop the dilly dallying. Get an atheist in here. He needs like it's like he's looking on the ground. He's addicted to smoking. He's looking for butts, right? He needs it.
Yeah. And that's what I felt like. I was talking to my brother about this video later, and I was just like, this just seems so kind of creepy, because it just seems like that kind of like the rapey incel guy that's getting frustrated with the date, because he needs to turn her into a victim quickly. Like, she wants to talk about like their life and their future, and what are your interests or whatever, and all he's thinking about is getting off, and he's just super, super frustrated that they're, that's all I saw. I'm like, he just wants to get his gun off. He doesn't really want to like talk to this guy, and not that many people get an opportunity to talk to PineCreek for that long,
right?
So, because I mean, he's got demands on his time, and he gets a lot of viewers, and there's a lot of people trying to call in. So, if he gets bored, he's not going to do it. But it's like, but at the same time,
he was making a point. He was making a point with this call.
Yes, yeah, he was definitely. He was letting him talk, which turned out to be just the right thing to do. So, yeah, unless you got anything else, I'll get started. We'll get going into it.
Go for it.
Okay, here we go. Just holler at me when you want me to pause it.
Robin wants to come in here. Let me see.
Hey, can you hear me? Excellent. Let me fix things, because Myron always screws things up. What's your name?
Robin.
Robin. Are you Christian? Non-Christian?
I am Christian, yeah.
Okay.
I was listening to the show, and I want to know, because I see you talking a lot about atheism versus theism, and whether or not theists are scared of atheists. I would like to know if your atheism is rational, if you have a rational defense for your atheism.
No.
You don't?
No.
You say you're completely irrational about your atheism?
Yeah.
Then why do you hold to it?
I feel compelled to. It's in my programming.
Let me get this straight.
I think
so then why? Hold on a minute. Why are you holding to
It's already
position?
grinning.
I just told you.
So I'm going to ask you, what do you think of this initial approach here, Time Rabbit?
That's the way PineCreek likes to do it. I mean, it worked with Darth. It worked fantastically with Darth. I don't know if I'd say it's irrational, because I don't think PineCreek's not. He doesn't actually think he's irrational, right? So, but I think it's easy enough to say that it's irrational. I mean,
yeah, I think it's, I think it works, but like it was surprising that, and he gets into it. He doesn't. I don't think he states it explicitly, but he does kind of tell JRobin a little bit later, like, well, from your worldview, I don't assume Christianity is true, therefore I'm irrational, right? But that's not enough for JRobin. JRobin is just like convinced. What I think is interesting is that JRobin just holds on to this, and anybody who hasn't watched it yet, he just keeps trying to bludgeon PineCreek with the fact that PineCreek has admitted to being irrational. What's odd about that is that JRobin is completely willing to accept Doug's claim that he's irrational, but none of his claims about rationality.
yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. JRobin thinks he's being sarcastic, right? He doesn't believe that he's actually admitting to anything, and no one would think that if you've seen any of PineCreek, right? So
hopefully not. Yeah, but the fact that he keeps trying to hold him to this literal understanding, like, no, you said you're irrational, therefore,
because he just wants to win, right? And
yeah, but
and what he's like gonna do,
terrible way to do it, like.
Yeah, and what he's gonna do now is he's gonna go back to the Legion of Doom, and he's gonna say, "Hey, I got PineCreek to say that he's irrational," even though he knows that not even JRobin believes that he's being serious. But he'll do that.
Oh God! All right, here we go.
I think if there is a God, he's programmed me this way.
So you have no rational defense for your position at all. No rational defense for your position?
Well, I do think, tell me if you disagree with this, I do think I see a lot of problems with the Quran.
No, that's not what I asked. I mean, I'm asking you have no rational. I'm just making this clear
Yeah.
because you're running an atheist show. You
Yeah.
talk about atheism versus theism, and all of this is just empty pontificating on your part.
No.
Good. So then, what's your rational? So then you must have a rational defense for your position. Then, so what's your rational?
Yeah.
defense?
So I look at all the different views of God, and that I'm not convinced by any of them. So maybe I'm not.
Hold on a minute. Not being convinced, you're appealing to your incredulity. That's a fallacy of reasoning.
So here's
go ahead.
here is the thing that here's the thing that they do, which they always do, right? And I've called them out for this, right? So they always have this question is like God does not exist because, and 95% of the time it's interpreted by the interlocutor as why don't you believe in God? But that's not actually what they're asking.
Right.
They're asking why is it impossible for God to exist? And the concept that I'm thinking of, which is just a mind, right? So anything that's not showing some sort of contradiction with that concept is a big fail to them, right? But here's what's so telling is that they know this. They know that 95% of people misinterpret this.
Yeah.
And instead of adjusting their question so that it's better understood, they continue doing this. Why? Because they love this. They love them misinterpreting and then slamming them, right? Over and over. Doesn't follow. That doesn't follow. That doesn't follow. All of a sudden, they just don't clarify over and over and over because they love it. They love this.
Well, the thing that I find interesting about it is I think that this is their attempt to sort of get back after a few years of people essentially telling them that a lot of Christian reasons for belief, not arguments, but a lot of the stated beliefs coming from Christians about why they think God is real are circular. You know, I believe in God because there's a book that tells me, oh, really? Why do you think that book's true? Well, because the book says that it was written by God. Okay, don't you realize that's circular? After a long enough period of time of Christians who try to get into these discussions having to take a belly full of that, they just decided, okay, well, we can just do this with them. What we'll tell them is, if we'll ask them this question, and this obviously isn't like standard apologetics, but it's, whatever these guys are slithering around with in Clubhouse and Discord and shit. The idea is to set somebody up, like you said, 95% of people are going to think like, oh, you're asking me why I think there is no God or why I don't believe. That's pedestrian enough, right? I could just, I have a problem with the, my thing is the problem of evil, the existence of unnecessary suffering, or something like that. People have lots of
reasons why they're not convinced, or reasons where they, this don't quite make sense to me.
Yeah, but when you get into these other ones where they're like, look, if you want me to present I got after him because he did the same thing to me when I was talking to him. I was like, you're asking me, like, because he did shift, he kept shifting back and forth. I'm like, you keep shifting between the two. If you ask me for my reasons and then tell me that I'm committing a logical fallacy when I'm giving you the reasons for why I don't believe in a God or why I think a God doesn't exist, I'm not presenting you with an argument. I'm just presenting you with my reasons for why I'm not convinced that God exists. But if you're telling me that no, it has to be an argument for, proving the non-existence of a God, yeah, that might hold. I can't use those things, but you can't ask both. You need to ask one or the other. And he didn't like that. He thought it was a dodge, of course, and started, crying and bitching. But yeah,
it's weird because they're gonna say that they're always gonna talk about this generic, oh, God is a mind. That's ultimate.
Right.
That's stripped down naked, right? And when you ask them though, is it any harder to defend the Christian God? They won't say it. They're gonna be like, oh, are you kidding me? That's easy.
Well,
right? But then why are they using this God?
Yeah, they did this. Enlightened did this last night. He came into he went on to Answers in Atheism's stream and kind of had a little bit of a one-on-one with Leo Filius, and he kind of runs the same script, almost identical. Leo, I thought, gave some pretty good answers to him. And then Enlightened did a technique that JRobin did to me, and I've heard JRobin, since I've been listening in on Clubhouse conversations, do at least a couple other people. He's going to do the opposite to Doug towards the end of this. So if you can remind me of that, there's a good chance I'll forget. I'm not feverish, but I lost some brain cells with this last fight with the flu. So, but yeah, no, it's really fucking dishonest. But it is part of this whole the way they define God in this kind of stripped down oh, it's a timeless, spaceless, immaterial mind. Okay, right. Well, you put a pin in that kind of definition, and then see what they end up running into problems with later on. In fact, there's actually a story I got to tell you about that, because when Enlightened went back to the clubhouse after going on to Speed, the Answers in Atheism YouTube live stream, Darth Dawkins got after him for using the timeless definition, the timeless property, which was
really?
Yeah, it got weird. But let's get into this, because I think they might get into this a little bit. I can't remember.
Maybe you are irrational. Maybe that's you were right the first time then.
Okay.
I mean, this is pretty embarrassing though. I mean, if you're running a show,
why?
Well, I mean, you're running a show, and you claim. I mean, I'm hoping that you're coming to rational conclusions. That's what it seems you're trying to do when you're critiquing these atheists or these theists that are talking about different issues. It doesn't sound like you care about being rational at all. So why would anyone take any weight to any of your assertions if you're not being rational?
Well, can we maybe look at points of agreement?
No, just like an answer to the question.
Oh, I already answered your question.
No. I asked a different question. Why would you one be irrational, and two, why would you be running a show on YouTube, a live stream with people watching, and you're expecting people to come to your conclusions if your conclusions are irrational?
So this is what I find weird about this. I agree with you that he probably knows that PineCreek is being sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek from the jump, but he's wasting a lot of words on this. This isn't getting him anywhere.
No. Well, it does. I mean, PineCreek his objective here is to get him off the script, right? To actually be able to talk to him. And it kind of works a little bit. You can tell JRobin doesn't really know what to do. He's just winging it right now. But what ends up happening though is that he just gets stuck on pounding away, like you said. Oh, you're irrational. That's it for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's weird. He doesn't ever go with another. These guys look for rhetorical triggers. If they see something that's connected to some kind of meme or rhetorical device that they're used to, and they can grab onto that, then they'll beat that up. They see it, they think of it as a new weakness, and then they hammer that until until the opponent guards it, and then they'll go after something else. But yeah, this one, he doesn't really have anything to. I mean, this is what kind of makes Doug kind of brilliant about doing this kind of stuff, because when these guys, get a hard on to go after him, it's this isn't the kind of guy that's going to give you the feedback that you want. Especially JRobin, if what you've been saying is true, it sounds like JRobin is one of those guys that's just itching to yell at somebody online, which sounds kind of fucked up. I mean, that's pretty psychotic. But
they can come to any conclusion they want to.
Yeah, but why are you? But the point is that you're sharing your opinion, as though it has weight, as though it has meaning, and ultimately you're being irrational. So I mean, this seems like a huge waste of time.
Okay, well, you don't have to watch.
No, I'm coming here for answers. I would expect that if you had any self-respect, you'd try to defend your position like a rational adult. But apparently that's
now he's just trying to attempt to mock him into oh, I'm not irrational. Oh no, I'm going to answer your pre-sub questions now. Silly.
Who, Doug?
That's what JRobin is attempting, is trying to insult him into goading him into a conversation.
He wants to make it about his reputation. Oh, well, I thought you had self-respect and you were an adult. If you were a self-respecting adult and you took your channel seriously, then you would take me seriously. Why would he? You didn't JRobin didn't take him seriously from the beginning. He wasn't you can hear the catch in his voice. As soon as he's on here, he's ready to go.
It seems like you're trying to do a ploy.
Can I try to please you?
No, it seems like you're trying to do a ploy because you are afraid of theism, particularly Christianity, and you've heard this line of reasoning before. You've heard you being placed on the on put your feet to the fire, and so you kind of tapping out from the get-go. That's what it sounds like you're doing.
Okay, but can we?
Am I correct in that assertion or an assumption?
Well, you said a lot there.
Yeah, but I'm saying that, and you know what I'm saying too, that you've heard people ask you if your position is rational. You've been defeated every time,
What does it mean to be
and so
rational?
as a result, when I come in here asking if you're rational or not, then it seems like you're tapping out from the
Well, let's
get-go.
just
Is that a
assume I
fair?
mean,
Is that a fair assumption?
there's nothing I could say that I think you would agree with. Like,
Is that a fair assumption,
no,
Antonio?
no.
Okay, so then there is another reason why you're telling me you're being irrational, but still holding to an irrational position.
Yeah, because I don't think it's a no-win situation for me.
So you don't have a rational position. So to be clear, for the fifth time,
I love this. He's actually getting honest with JRobin at this point, but JRobin's not picking it up. Like this is to me where it gets tragic, right? He's like, no, because you're a preceptor, and preceptors start from the assumption that if you don't have a worldview that presupposes the existence of God, specifically the Christian God, then everything else is irrational. So anyone that you disagree with is going to be irrational by definition. And he's sort of explaining why he was tongue in cheek at the beginning, and JRobin's still not accepting it. He's just going to go like, no, you told me that you're irrational. I'm going to take you at your word that you're irrational. Like I just love that like JRobin is only charitable when somebody offers up something that's a weakness or self-deprecation. If they offer up something like, oh yeah, no, I do think I have a rational argument. Oh, okay, let's hear it. Let's suss that out. They're like, yeah, I think I have a rational reason for why God doesn't exist. JRobin's like, I bet you don't. You're fucking loon, right? You can't have a rational explanation from the jump because you're not a Christian. So I mean, Doug is totally right here, and JRobin is so blinkered. Like he's been in this for so long, he doesn't even see that. Doug knows the next 5 moves JRobin's going to try to make. And he's already bored with that. He just wants to see where.
Notice how he dodged the question about what's rational.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into definitions of rational or whatever. He's been doing that a lot, though. I've noticed that on Clubhouse. People try to pin him down, like, "Hey, let's maybe like settle on a term." And I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you've seen other people between Clubhouse and Discord, but he seems to be the worst for that lately, because that used to be kind of the thing. Like, hey, let's settle on defining terms, which a lot of these guys have been bad at. I mean, Darth is notoriously bad. He'll throw a temper tantrum because he thinks that you don't understand what he means by ultimate or foundational, and some people don't. Right. But yeah, JRobin's just gotten right into that. Can't fully embrace that. No, I don't have to explain shit. You know what I mean? Like, no.
You're sticking to the claim that you're being an irrational atheist.
Is it rational for me to believe?
I mean, honestly, the whole reason I came on here was just to see if you're being rational. But if you're going to tell me from the onset that you're not being rational, I don't think there's any point in continuing.
What would it take for you to be convinced that I am rational in my position?
I'd like to know if you have but it doesn't matter because you don't.
Another dog.
Doesn't matter.
Rational. No, you don't have. You're not being.
Yeah. Another.
So all these questions that JRobin's dodging are things that would advance the conversation, right? But JRobin's not interested in that.
Yeah, he wants to yell at Doug. I mean, the whole thing at this point, it starts immediately sounding like to anybody outside listening, like, well, it just sounds like this caller just wants to be on air to say in as many different ways as possible that PineCreek is wrong, without really backing it up. Like, but then he'll try to do it with like, this goofy sophistry kind of shit. I'll use the Socratic method, but there's no way you can answer any of these questions. I mean, I think he's actually even gotten worse than Darth, because Darth still every once in a while somebody can answer his questions, and I think even Darth gets curious if he hears a novel answer. I don't sense that with JRobin anymore. JRobin just always sounds impatient now. It just sounds like he wants to get straight to, he sees a victim and then he wants that person dead. He doesn't actually want to go through the motions of killing them. He just wants the score. So, and he seems like put out by the fact that he has to put up the effort to even argue with somebody or yell at them for this. They should just accept the fact that he's right and they should kiss his dick or something. That's my impression of him.
Being rational, so it doesn't. I mean,
what would it take for me to convince you?
Mostly a waste of time.
What would it take?
I just want to know if that's what you're sticking to before I go. Because if you're
Are you going to leave soon?
now? Well, if you're committed to being irrational, then I don't think there's a point.
I never said I'm committed to being irrational.
I'll just give you. Is your position rationally derived or not? If it's not, then there's no point in talking about the subject.
Well, I'll let you be the judge.
Okay? Is your position rational or not?
I'll let you be the judge whether my position is rational.
Doug, do you have a rational defense for your position?
Yeah.
I love this. Like he's offering to let him evaluate whatever his claim is, whatever his quote unquote defense is going to be. And JRobin is just interested in getting him to repeat what he started with.
Right.
I mean, at that point, it's pathetic. Like, no, I'm going to accept the fact that you said that you were being irrational. Like, you don't want to evaluate the claim. You're just going to take his word that whatever his defense is or whatever his reasons for not believing that there is no God are irrational. You just accept that. And then when things start like, Robin is such a fucking sleaze. This, ugh.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're contradicting yourself because originally you said no.
Well, the reason why I said no in the beginning.
This is live, so everyone can go back to the replay when you said no.
The reason why I said no in the beginning, because there's probably nothing. I know you're a precept, and there's nothing I can say to convince you otherwise. Because if you don't accept Christianity, you're irrational by definition, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're afraid of your own position. That's what it sounds like.
Good answer. Another dodge.
Why would you capitulate to what I think?
Hey, Robin.
Yeah. Like, okay, if JRobin wasn't picking it up, through implications. There it was from Doug explicitly why Doug started that way. And JRobin wants to now at this point, JRobin is going to, instead of just trying to like hang this guy with his own words, even though they were tongue in cheek, he's going to act in bad faith at a point where it's just, it just becomes a really obvious straw man. Because no matter what he does at any point, JRobin feels like he can always retreat back to the safe space of, yeah, but you started off the whole thing saying you're irrational. Like that explanation that Doug gave him makes no difference for JRobin. JRobin got his first bone, and he's gonna bank everything off that defense, even though it's now totally irrelevant.
Instead of defending your own position,
Robin, if I answer,
Robin, you do have a rational defense for your position.
Yeah.
Okay. How does it follow logically that there is no God then?
Okay, because when I read
this
the
old
Quran,
song and dance,
I see like there's a certain prophecies in the Quran that's supposed to be the word of God, and I see that they fall flat. And so I don't believe that. That's just a very short, simple.
I didn't ask you about the Quran.
Well, you're asking about God, right?
I'm asking, how does it follow that there is no God? What's your logical,
I just told you
justification?
Because I don't believe that God exists. If the Quran represents the word of,
that's a bait and switch answer, because now you're appealing to local atheism, not global atheism. You're a global atheist. Atheism without qualification denotes global atheism.
Are you saying that it's irrational? Am I?
What's that?
I don't think Doug is that.
He's
an atheist without qualification. Doug thinks there's a contradiction between like any concept of God. I don't think that's true.
And I don't think in terms of philosophical arguments he would care. And the one thing though I think is odd about this, because I mean, Darth's been doing the global, you're a global atheist, these guys want to do the global atheist, like, hey, I just want you to know, what's so hard for you to accept about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial mind that is responsible for the creation of the creation and maintenance, sustenance of absolutely everything in our reality. Well, what you're defining into existence sounds like could just as easily not exist, given the properties you just gave it. It doesn't exist anywhere. It doesn't exist any time, and it's not made out of anything. All you've told me is that it's a mind that's not instantiated by any kind of form, force, entity, or anything else, but it somehow has will, and all things in reality are contingent upon it. With the exception of that last bit, everything else that you described also matches the same set of stuff or the categories of things that don't exist. So You basically, all you've done, and I think Doug actually says this, all you've done is basically define what God's not. But when these guys get into this whole crap with global and local atheism, the reason that globo God, as I'll call him, that one works because it comes from Christianity. That's the only concept of God that works, according to JRobin and Darth Dawkins, that can work because it's the God of the Bible. All other God concepts are derivative.
I mean, this is just like an attempt to get the atheist to have some kind of burden. I mean, when I say atheist, I just mean the person who's a non-theist or whatever, right? I mean, I don't know what every person's using the word as, but point is, they want to go on the offensive, but if they don't really have something that they're hard committed to, then they lose most of their script. So the first thing on the itinerary is to get them to have some kind of a burden.
Yeah, which they've started doing anyway, right? Because they and that's what I think is weird. The world that they inhabit in now is they're trying to make it so they're positing this as like, look, the rational position is one that assumes that God is just real by default. Now, you crazy, you show up here and tell me why it is the case that thing is impossible. And don't come at me with you don't like the Quran or you don't like the Bible or you don't like the Bhagavad Gita, because that stuff's just local. Those are stations. I'm talking about the entire, you're talking about frequencies on the radio. I'm talking about the nature of sound itself, man, or whatever. The big God, the super hippie God or whatever, that's the one, right? Okay, fine. But as soon as you start squeezing these guys, the only reason that God can actually exist that way is because it created everything, created a faulty man, and then created a redemption saga, which requires it to appear in human form to die for our sins. It creates a whole redemption arc saga that's necessary for its existence. If that's not there, it's not glorifying itself. And if it's not glorifying itself, it's not God. That glorification of itself is a key factor that they keep leaving out of their definition of God. So any of these guys that are talking to Jared, you could go and say, yeah, you know what? I'm not inclined to think that this classical theism God exists. I'm just as inclined to think that it doesn't, right? But let's say that it does. Now prove to me it's Jesus. And they can't do that. And JRobin knows that.
Yeah, they don't like doing that.
No.
Even though they say it couldn't be any other way. They don't like doing that for some reason.
And that
seems like something I would lead with.
Right, and that's what they try to say. But he gets into a problem with this later, because Doug brings this up. I think JRobin tries to slap Doug's hand for going back into like Mormonism or Islam or something like that, and he says something that is really kind of just kind of explodes something that he and Enlighten and Matt Yester and Darth have been using for quite a while.
Well, I have to step away for a few minutes, but I'll be right back.
Okay, do you want me to keep going? I can.
Yeah, keep going because that's fine.
Okay, all right.
To disregard.
That's not what I said, and you know it. So, do you have a rational defense for the position that is global atheism, which is that?
Yeah, I just told you. When I read the Quran, I do not see.
Reading the Quran is not reading the Quran. Islam, refuting Islamic theology or refuting the Islamic religion would be you're trying to defend a local atheist perspective. If you're trying to hone in and trying to particularly defeat Islam,
but is there another God other than
then you are doing a local.
Well, which God?
I actually think these guys may have this wrong. I'll pontificate here on this for a little bit, just kind of go off on a tangent. So the definition that I prefer is for atheism, or at least the distinctions, is wide and narrow, right? In terms of like your beliefs. So a narrow atheist, a wide atheist would be somebody who would believe in, who basically doesn't agree in really any supernatural claims, right? They can entertain God concepts, but they don't think that they're actually real. And that's any of them. The Abrahamic God, God of classical theism, whatever, everything from the God of Spinoza all the way through to, any pagan or tribal God you could possibly find. And then the narrow atheist would be somebody that rejects more the kind of God of classical theism or the Abrahamic gods, the God of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. but they don't necessarily think that concept of God. They think that concept of God is not real. That's what they're inclined to not believe in. But they either remain agnostic or possibly open to the existence of other kinds of supernatural things, or spirits, or entities, or whatever, or maybe even possibly other definitions of God, just not this particular kind of God. They kind of ase, by ase I mean independent of anything else but itself, existing in and of itself, immaterial, spaceless, timeless mind that creates everything, and everything is dependent upon. So I think that's a better definition of this. This one where these guys go global and local, the way they're using this is not very clear to me. If they were talking about wide, they'd be talking about somebody who tends not to believe in anything supernatural, which I think might apply to PineCreek. I think he would probably be willing to admit that. A narrow atheist would be somebody like Skylar Fiction, right? He's inclined to think that maybe a definition of pantheism, if there is a being like a god, it's, that the definition provided by pantheism for him is something that he's a little bit more, he might be more inclined to accept that than to accept the god of classical theism. As far as the god of classical theism goes, no, he doesn't believe that, or he's inclined to think maybe based on its properties, it's not possible. JRobin is doing this thing with this part where he's like, okay, look, I don't want you going after Islam or Mormonism or even Christianity, probably. Like, although I don't know if he'd be correcting Doug, he'd be as apt to do this if Doug just went after the Bible directly. But I suspect that if Doug had picked the Bible, New Testament or Old Testament, JRobin would be like, hey, we're not talking about he'd pull a Darth. We're not talking about the Bible yet. We're not talking about Jesus yet. We're just talking about the existence of a God.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'd be happy to talk about Jesus, but first, right? And
Right.
the first never comes.
Yep.
It's funny because they get really, really mad because they don't like to do evidential arguments. And Darth says something like, you shouldn't do it because anything that you come up with, the atheist is just going to say, and he does this sort of like, Jurassic Park, Ned, I forgot to say the magic word routine.
Yeah.
And that's really just all they're doing when they say God does not exist because, right? And the only thing that'll satisfy them, the question, is some sort of, impossible contradiction that you come up with a mind. Stupid.
Yeah. And I maybe one of these days I'll think, because getting back to that kind of the point that I was rambling on with, I'm not. How do you think they're using the global versus local atheism?
Global means any God does not exist. Period.
Okay,
and then
so
local means concept A does not God concept B, like, on and on and on and on. Like your specific gods are being eliminated as being viable. But the global atheist not only says all those gods, this is the way they use it, not only means that all those gods are not viable, but a god can't be.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, they're trying to say global is wide and local is narrow. So.
Yeah, just no God exists, period. No God exists, period. So any pointing to like anything specific wouldn't get you to no gods exist, period. Right? You could eliminate all you want, but unless you eliminate all of them, and I don't even know how you know that. I mean, it's a fool's errand.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
You're not a local atheist position. You're a global atheist, right? Perhaps I'll ask the question a different way. Okay, how does it follow that what is fundamental is
Doug didn't answer the question.
Yeah, of all that, I was going to say something there. I wasn't going to pause it again for it, but yeah, it's like, okay, he's been pretty. He's gotten kind of peeved when he's asked a question and he hasn't gotten a direct answer from Doug. And in that case, he didn't even wait for Doug to finish it and just moved on.
Because he didn't want him to answer the question. Because he wants the global atheist thing. He wants to proceed along those lines.
Yeah. And so now he started. What was the question he just asked again?
Are you global atheist? Then I don't know.
that far. Where are we at?
And trying to particularly defeat Islam.
What is there another god other than the?
Then you are doing a local
Well, which
atheist.
god?
You're taking out a local atheist position. You're a global atheist, right? Perhaps I'll ask the question a different way. Okay, how does it follow that what is fundamental is not a mind? Okay, because God typically just denotes, in a general sense, that which is ultimate. It's a mind.
Wait a minute.
So how does it follow? How does it follow that?
Hey, Robin, do you just want to? I'm actually really willing to have a serious conversation with you if you're allowed to let me talk a little bit. This is my show, by the way. Are you willing to do that?
You know what I didn't pick this up the first time, but he said he was talking about the Muslim God, and they said, "Oh, is there other gods?" See, PineCreek is a few moves ahead of JRobin right now, right? He knows exactly what he's doing, right? And usually when PineCreek says something like, "Oh, I'm irrational," or something like, "Oh, are there other gods?" Of course he knows that there's other gods, right? He's trying to induce JRobin to saying something like, "Yeah, there's the Christian God," and then like they can now PineCreek has successfully gotten him off this like script, right?
Yeah.
So PineCreek knows what he's doing, right? And any kind of hollow victory that JRobin thinks he might get from PineCreek saying something like, "Oh, I'm irrational," well, that's not really any victory to speak of, because anybody with any sense knows exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, they know what he's doing, and you know that's the sad thing about it. Like, if you're charitable, then you know, okay, JRobin knows what PineCreek was doing when he first started that, but you start losing that charity the more he just keeps beating this dead horse. That's like, okay, now you deserve what you get. Like, you're just dragging that down, and this isn't going to end well for you. Although it does go in a very different direction though than I thought, and the way that he kind of wraps things up is pretty good. Doug, not JRobin.
That's why I'm
Robin, can you answer? Robin.
So how does it follow that what is fundamental?
Robin, let's practice answering questions.
Doug, how does it follow that?
No, they don't do this.
It seems like you need that practice more than anything, because you.
What's that?
They don't do the whole practice. They don't do any type of thing like that. They don't want to be committed to anything, right?
Yeah.
Any setup where you say, if I answer this question, will you then answer that question? They will never respond to things like that, because they don't want to be committed to not doing this. Just repeating the question, bludgeoning them over and over, some sort of sense of etiquette, anything like that. They don't want to commit themselves to anything like that. So you can't even negotiate with them on how the conversation plays out.
No, yeah. And it's kind of sad too, because it's like, I mean, if JRobin's watching this, if he's listening to this, observe how, even because I'm sure JRobin thinks that PineCreek is a snake and he's duplicitous because of the Satan and stuff. But observe how much time JRobin was able to go off on his
Right.
enemy, PineCreek,
Right.
versus the amount of time Darth Dawkins gives any of his
exactly.
opponents.
So after this, I was listening to JRobin on Clubhouse, and he said PineCreek did not want to have a conversation. You just heard PineCreek say it. He says, "I want to have a conversation. Let JRobin finish." Right? He's trying to lay out some rules and something that's fair. It's like, can you answer this question? Blah blah blah. But you'll hear PineCreek say this over and over. "I really want to have a conversation." He's like forced to mute JRobin. I mean, he just won't stop talking, right? And JRobin then has the gall to go and say, "Yeah, PineCreek didn't want to have a conversation. He's the one who wants to have a conversation, not you, JRobin."
Yeah. Yep.
Can you answer one question for me? And it's a very simple.
I'm waiting for a legitimate response. You just gave me a BS answer. So how does it follow that?
Let's practice answering. Let's practice being quiet and answering a question. Okay, and then we'll take turns.
Can we practice being non-evasive and being rational? Because it seems like you don't have enough practice with that, even though you're doing a live show.
So, do you live in the United States? Let's just practice. Let's.
Doug, I'm not gonna let you shift. I'm not gonna let you shift topic. So it seems like you're very afraid of your own position. That's what it sounds like it is, because you're talking about the United States.
I'm willing to
when
give you
asking
anything you
when I'm asking
want.
when I'm asking you specifically about your
I'm
atheism.
afraid. Okay.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, the whole
Okay.
topic of the show is fear, and it sounds like, I mean, the
I really
irony of
do
it is
want to
that
have a
you're-
conversation with you.
The irony of the situation is that you're completely
Robin, I really do want to have a conversation with you because I love pre-subs. But you got to at least allow me to answer a question or two and then ask a question of you as well and have you the opportunity to answer. Is that okay? Can we do that?
Okay, so how does it follow that what is fundamental is not a mind? Though?
I don't
See
even
how they don't.
understand that.
He's opposed to answering any question that'll set any kind of ground
If-
rules.
even just a-
etiquette.
Even just a conversational one, just to be friendly. That's all he had to do there. Is okay, all right. Like, but he's
Darth
not
is
gonna.
the same way.
Yeah, he's not going to take it down a step, because if you concede anything, well, that's just too much weakness. This is what looks really bad for him, because, I mean, Doug has conceded to being irrational. He's conceded to being inconsistent. He's conceded to being even afraid, and he's in a hell of a stronger position and is coming across a hell of a lot more confidently than JRobin is. And JRobin is playing like this, like he's like the angriest. I don't know what this is. It's just some kind of fucked up Christian apologist virtue signaling or something. Like it's like he came on here to get some kind of badge or merit, a merit badge or something to, from the troop.
Question.
How does it follow? What's your justification that what is fundamental to all of reality is either not a mind, or that there is no fundamental to all of reality?
I still don't
What's your
understand that question.
justification?
I
So
still
you don't know what a justification is?
No, I don't understand your question.
Justification is?
He's been doing this a lot. This is a little bit of a tip, especially if anybody like ends up talking to JRobin on Clubhouse. Notice what happened there. So he's like, I don't know. I don't understand what that means. I don't understand what your question is. And JRobin, oh, you don't understand what justification is? That's not what Doug said. He didn't understand the question. And JRobin is going to make this about PineCreek playing dumb about the definition of the word justification. And that's not at all what he's doing. And JRobin, like, he loops around on this a couple of times.
What is your
use different words?
Your rational. I just did. I used the word justification for the first time just now. So you don't know what a justification is? A logical justification?
Yeah,
for a claim?
I
Good.
understand that.
Good. So you know what that is. So then why are you pretending like you don't know?
He didn't pretend like he didn't know what a justification was. He said he didn't understand the question you asked.
Right.
But if JRobin actually listened at least as much as he talked, he would have caught that. But he's on here to sermonize on PineCreek's channel for points. I'm really hoping the reach around from Darth is great. But my guess is it's not.
So what is your logical justification or your defense, or how does it rationally follow that what is fundamental is not a mind?
What is fun? And what do you mean by mind?
A mind just denotes that something's conscious, and there are peripheral values like agency and intelligence. But that's typically what we mean when we say mind. Okay. So how does it follow that what is fundamental is not a mind?
Is this cup fundamental?
Do you have a serious answer to my question?
No, this is a serious answer to the question.
No,
is this cup fundamental?
No, you can't answer a question with a question.
This cup is not a mind. I am justified to think that
what is fundamental is not a mind.
Okay, are you good? Give me at least 10 seconds. Is that fair?
You're talking about cups and pots and pans. I don't want to hear about your silverware or your dinner.
Okay, how could
And it'd be a hell of a lot more productive conversation if you keep him from just stammering through everything. I mean, this kid is trying to like talk faster than his brain's going. It's pretty clear his brain's not moving that quickly.
Doug. Okay, Doug. Answer the question.
I said. Like, do you really think that's going to win you points? Like at that point, you don't know if are you trying to push my buttons, or are you just a fucking idiot? Not that it matters, because I mean, the existence of fucking idiots tends to push my buttons. So yeah.
Can I answer your question?
I want to know.
Give me an example how I could.
I want to know, how does it follow that therefore there is no God? I see you're laughing on screen right now. This is a big joke to you. I understand that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be the one. You shouldn't be the one.
I'm having fun, and I want you to have fun as well.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like you're flip flopping, you're floundering, because it doesn't sound like.
Does it? Like, I remember watching this at the beginning, kind of wondering where I had no concern as to whether or not Doug was going to come out looking all right, because it was like JRobin's not. He's not even good at conversation, so he's not. I don't think he's going to win in this battle of wits. But I didn't really know exactly how this was going to go. And when it got to this point, and JRobin's like, "No, I think you're flip flopping and floundering," I'm like, "Yeah, then how come it doesn't seem like that?" Like Doug sounds more consistent in everything that he said, even after admitting to obvious contradictory statements. And JRobin sounds like he's shooting blanks.
JRobin doesn't really know what to do right now.
Yeah.
He's trying to get back on script. He's really trying hard.
And I'm wondering what inspired him to take a run at him. It must have just been the top. It must have just been the title, because that's what he brought up. Your title says that theists are scared, so he's like, "Well, I'll show him I'm not scared."
Right.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Like you have a rational defense for your position.
What would count as a rational defense of my position?
You don't know what rational.
Good question. That's going to advance the conversation.
Why did you say you're being rational?
What's that?
I said that's a great question, right? That's the question. If answered, they can proceed and advance the conversation. But JRobin don't want to do that.
Nope.
Robin, I really do want to have a conversation with you, because you got at least, like you just said, you shouldn't answer a question with a question, and that's exactly what you just did. So let's both try to work together, okay? So what would be an answer that I could give to your question?
How does it follow that what is fundamental?
No. You're doing it again. I just asked you a question, and I would love for you to answer it. So ask that question to yourself, and then
I like anytime you see that orange around there, he's still talking. Like, so
Right.
JRobin is in full Darth Dawkins mode. Like, you mute him. Now, granted, he doesn't know that he's being muted, but he does hear the host of the show that he called into talking to him, and he just refuses to give up until it seems to me like the only time he'll actually give up is when he realizes, oh, he muted me. I don't know with this whereby program if they can see that they've been turned off. I think they can on their side of things, but my guess is that JRobin like snorted a bunch of instant coffee and then went at him.
And answer it. Answer the question you just asked from your perspective.
Yeah, Doug, I'm not going to play your game. How does it follow that what is fundamental mind?
So
what about that question implied a game? I really don't get that.
You're allowed to ask me questions, and I'm not allowed to ask you questions?
No, you're deliberately trying to evade. That's why I can sense it easily. So I'm not going to let you.
And I have to pause you. I have to mute you each time in order to talk. But when you asked that question, I said I don't understand the question, so you elaborate more. And then I talked about this cup. Now, this cup could represent fundamental reality in some way, at least part of it, right? Yet I think both of us agree it doesn't have a mind. Now, what's the justification for that? We can use induction and say, well, I asked you to define mind, you didn't even do that, so I'm kind of stuck here. But what I perceive as a mind is some type of consciousness and so forth. And I think you and I agreed the cup doesn't have consciousness yet. I think both of us would say it exists. So my question to you is, give me an answer that you would say, yes, that's a good answer.
Yeah, you still haven't answered my question. I'm not going to answer your questions for you. You're the one that needs to defend your own position. Why are you asking me to defend your position for you? You need to defend your own position. I know this is a little tactic that you try to think up to try to defeat, the line of reasoning that's been given to you, but you still haven't answered a single question that's been asked, other than whether or not you're being rational. And
line of reasoning
you're contradicting yourself on. So now that we have an answer,
he never even got him into a line of reasoning. He wouldn't let him go from the irrational part.
I can define fundamental better than they can. And part of that reason is only because they're actually not interested in clarity, right? They live in this ambiguity and they don't want to like hard to find words. But basically by fundamental, from what I've gathered, I think this is pretty accurate. When they say what is it that's fundamental, blah blah blah, they're just saying something like what is the one thing that exists, and without it, nothing else would exist because it's dependent on that thing? That's all they mean. And if you have a God and you take away God, nothing is left, right? Because everything is dependent on God. That cup that Doug has, if God doesn't exist, goes away. It doesn't exist. If the cup goes away, God is still there, right? Because God's fundamental. It's easy. But you would think they would have refined this script to where it's easily understandable by people, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. So I'm not going to belabor that. Let's just move forward.
You believe you're being rational. How does it follow logically that there is no God?
I said, well, when I read the Book of Mormon and that
Okay, so first you're talking about Islam, now you're talking about Mormonism.
well, you didn't accept Muslim.
This is a bait and switch because you're trying to defend local atheism, not global atheism.
I am defending global atheism.
No, you're trying to defend local atheism because you're talking about particular gods.
But we have to go.
All I'm asking about is the general conception of God, which is that what is fundamental.
I don't like the way they're doing this, because they're like, oh, this is just a general conception of God. So is pantheism. This or like the God of Spinoza. The one that they're kind of leaning into is the God of classical theism. And even then, they're not entirely. I don't know that these guys are all entirely on the same page, because I think one of the properties usually assigned with the God of classical theism is divine simplicity, which I don't know if all of them are cool with. And that's a long pedantic thing, and I'm not going to bore the audience with any of that stuff. But yeah, that notion, like, oh well, this is just a general. Well, someone could define pantheism in a lot of the same ways, and pantheism does share some of the same kind of properties. That the kind of pantheistic entity that you end up talking about, God as a universe or whatever, has a lot of the same properties as a God of classical theism. So that's one of the things that makes it so frustratingly vague. What JRobin and crew have whittled this down to, and they're trying to do, they're like, I want you to tell me, and this is actually fairly easy to do, because Doug started off this whole thing with an understanding that if JRobin's consistent in his worldview, then JRobin's not going to think that anything Doug says is rational, right? And I think he kind of tripped him up with that, which is what made JRobin so desperate to cling to that. Oh, you admitted to being an irrational, and he thought he had a weakness to run with. But at this point, you could basically just do, and PineCreek's already admitted to this. You could say, okay, yeah, like you're asking me to accept the idea of an immaterial, spaceless, timeless mind. That's the foundation for all of reality. Okay. I'm like, oh, okay, so you don't have a problem believing that? Yeah, no, I don't. Tell me. Then you ask JRobin, why did it have to become human and die for my sins?
It's not gonna be an argument for that. But about this rationality thing, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I'll just say it again. Maybe it's for the newcomers. But it'll be funny because they define incoherent. I've heard them define incoherent, and like usually when we hear the word incoherent, we think of something like, oh, whatever's being discussed. You're saying so X is incoherent. That means X has some sort of contradiction, right? But then I've heard them define, Darth in particular, define incoherent as not conforming to the mind of God.
Right. Yeah.
So when he's saying like,
which isn't that the same? Isn't that the same as being a lie? Truth is
well, a lie doesn't. Well, I don't know, but the point is that when you say that atheism is incoherent, and incoherent just means doesn't conform to the mind of God, right? Like atheism is false, and like it doesn't. You're just basically saying that atheism is not theism, right? Atheism doesn't conform to the mind of God. That's all he's saying.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that when these guys do this kind of stuff, they're like, well, that doesn't, you know, y- it, we have the capacity to be irrational, right? But irrationality is that which does not conform to the mind of God, and yet everything that exists is contingent upon that God, and is sustained by that same God, which actually gets them into a lot more trouble. At least theologically. Philosophically, I don't know so much, but theologically, I think it causes problems. But they tend to believe that not all this stuff comes from God, and I'm like, okay, well, if this is why I think Calvinists actually have a stronger stance here in terms of theology, when they make these claims, like there are some people that are destined for the fire, some are purpose built for destruction, right? Like, okay, that's consistent if this God knows all and has designed everything, is the creator of everything and sustainer of it, then every one that is behaving in a particular way. I mean, the problem with Calvinism is that it entails and can lead to lots of problems that are inherent with determinism, which is a lot of those problems are problems that Calvinists themselves would rather avoid. But they will at least acknowledge, like, no, that kind of, like, your ability to lie, your ability to be irrational, sin, all this kind of, all of this stuff is, yeah, it exists. They'd acknowledge it in some cases. Yeah. Not many Calvinists will say that evil is dependent on God, but all of this stuff ultimately is dependent upon God's plan because it's about glorifying Him. So yeah, that definition that irrationality is just, well, it's whatever doesn't conform to the mind of God. Like, well, everything in this reality has to conform to the mind of God, otherwise it can't exist.
Yeah, it's almost like he's saying, okay, do you admit that your atheism is irrational? And by that, he just means, do you admit that your atheism is not theism? Doesn't it sound weird?
Yeah. It's sort of, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll admit that. Like, well, your atheism doesn't conform to the mind of God. Bingo.
Yeah. Oh,
You know what else doesn't conform to the mind of God? My belief that there is no such thing as the mind of God. So, which is atheistic, and yeah, you're right. So now, like, well, that can't be true. Like, all right. So what I think is odd, given that, like, he's just super excited that at the beginning that Doug admitted to being irrational. It's like, you guys have spent years having arguments with people online where you tell them they're irrational from the jump because they're not Christian. They'll even tell some other Christians they're, you know what I mean? Like, you're a Catholic. No, that's not. You're only halfway there. It's fucking frustrating.
The creator of all things is a mind. That's the general conception. So now you're talking about different properties,
Okay.
and extended properties of God.
Okay.
But that's not relevant to what I'm asking you. You're not answering what I'm asking you. So
okay, Robin, I'll seriously try to answer your question here, but you got to, instead of making this a battle between atheists and theists, let's just be human beings here for a second, okay? Now, if you're talking about a global mind, I do not think you can falsify that. But in the same token, I would say that I don't think there's a good reason to believe it exists. But if you're asking me to falsify it, I don't think it's even possible.
Yeah, right. I told you I didn't think that.
Having this idea of,
right.
I said I don't think PineCreek is going to sign off on that. Almost no people that use the word atheist are going to sign off on that.
Right? And that's sort of the trick. I mean, like you mentioned it, when they phrase their question that way, like, there's a big difference between saying, like, you asked me, it sounded like you asked me what my reasons are for not believing, or for having a positive belief and a negative, however they want to put it. But you're asking me for my reasons for my stance on something. You asked me for my worldview. And now you're telling me, like, no, you have to falsify that. You have to substantiate it with an argument. Like, you didn't ask me for an argument. You asked me for my reasons why. Why do you believe these things? And I told you.
What he thought, but mistaken.
And like I said, I mean, you've probably seen it, but it was from like a year or two ago. I reviewed it on my channel, but it was a video. I don't know if you were on it. I think it might have been Ask. Maybe I didn't review it. It might have been Ask Yourself and Alex Malpass talking with Darth Dawkins. And Darth asks him a question about that, and he tries to pin him on that. He basically, he tries to say, oh, you don't believe in the claims from the Bible. That's just an argument from incredulity. And the whole point of that is like the argument from incredulity fallacy when somebody points it out, it's potentially, there's potentially something there, but not really. Like generally what would happen is like if a Christian does the whole thing, like, I had a Christian do this to me at work years ago, asked me if I was a believer, and I was like, no. And literally she said, well, how is there all this stuff? Basic argument, an appeal to incredulity, right? It was, we have this grand philosophical question. Why is there something rather than nothing? There's something. How could that possibly be without a God? And specifically without the God I happen to worship and think is the real one, right? But when these guys are like, okay, so if an atheist is like, yeah, I'm not convinced of the claims, well, that's just an argument from incredulity. No, it's not. You're raising that to a level that's like, if you're asking me, can you I'm not saying I cannot conceive of a being that does these things, an immaterial, a spaceless, timeless, immaterial mind. Okay, let's say that I can hypothetically assume that that's real. My issue with it isn't that I can't imagine it, and therefore, out of incredulity, I'm denying it just out of hand. No, my problem with that definition is that definition also happens to match definitions of a bunch of other things that aren't real. And that's not controversial, because there are plenty of Christians that don't believe in ghosts. And ghosts tend to fit that definition. They don't exactly exist in a space or a time. They're not specifically material. They might be minds. So the definition that I'm being given is of a super ghost. A ghost that can build stuff. The Minecraft ghost or something. I don't know what you'd want to call it. Any thoughts there? I probably
No.
too long. Okay.
Some nebulous God with whose only attributes is it has a bodiless mind or something like that. I don't think you can falsify that. So could this God exist? Yes. But I still think I can call myself an atheist to say that there's no good reason to believe that God exists. Now, I had you on mute for a reason, because otherwise I couldn't get that out. Okay, you're unmuted now.
Atheism is the position that what is fundamental is not the mind. It's a denial of God as defined. So you're telling me you cannot defend your position rationally. You said it's not falsifiable.
Right.
Okay. It's a denial of God as defined. Not entirely. I mean, I know people get jerked out of shape about definitions of atheism, stuff like that, but I don't have a problem with people sort of not. I mean, they call it the lacktheist position, but to me, it's just the psychological definition, right? Like, are you psychologically inclined to believe in a God or not? And if they're like, no, not really inclined to believe that it's true, they might not have good reasons for it. They might not have thought about any of the philosophical arguments for it. They've just heard some presentations or maybe some stories from the Bible or some other things. They're not inclined to think that that's true. And it gets interesting here, because I think for most people, I'll be asking Tom about this in a minute. They'll get into this. I think it's coming up right up.
Okay, so then you are irrational.
Okay.
So then why? So now you flipped out 3 times.
No.
They just got back to where Doug. I love this. He's accusing him of flip-flopping a 3rd time, and they've gotten back to where Doug was trying to lead him. Doug's been trying to tell him, no, from your position, I'm irrational from the start. And Robin is now, oh, well, you flip-flopped again. Like, Jesus, this kid is dense.
Position. So no. First you said you're irrational.
I agreed, Robin. I agreed with you, because there's no way I can convince you otherwise. So I'm not even going to try. Like, it's a hopeless case, right? By the way, you're muted right now, so nobody can hear you, and I will unmute you. But the reason why I asked that question, how would I even falsify that claim? Like, well, let's work together. How would we do that? This creator God with an immaterial mind of some sort, how would an atheist falsify that claim?
Okay. I need to respond to what you're saying, and if you don't let me,
it's a good question.
Then we cannot have a conversation. Which is so. I mean, apparently that's you want to have a conversation. Okay, so let's have a conversation. Okay. I want to respond to what you said. So, you told me that first thing you said was that you're being irrational. Then you told me you are being rational, and now you're saying you're being irrational again. So that sounds like a lot of irrationality to me. If you're being contradictory so many times, maybe you should do a little bit of soul searching before you come
What?
back to live again, because this is embarrassing for you. Okay, how do you so if your position is irrational?
I like how he's arrogant enough to tell him how he's supposed to run his channel. Like, does he
Just
really
trying to manipulate him to, like, you know,
Yeah, this like any of this is going to have an effect on him. Like, this dude, period, at his lowest gets like in the low 300s during just live views. Granted, some of that are people just like, some of those are Christians looking to, you know, spot a weakness or something, but still, he gets a lot of views. And
Yeah.
does JRobin even have a YouTube channel? Is he keeping up? Does he?
Not that I know of.
He just does the Discord and Clubhouse thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah.
Rational. Your position is irrational. The second thing you said was that you'd find it difficult to have a reason to believe in God. As you said, you find it difficult to have a reason to believe in God. But that doesn't make any sense because your reason is arbitrary. So your second criteria of belief has been completely it doesn't make any sense to say what you just said, because you're being arbitrary in your reasoning. You're not being rational. So you've defeated your own second line of reasoning with your first line of reasoning.
Okay. Are you done?
So do you have anything that's consistent that we can work on moving forward, that you can defend or that you can present, you know, as a consistent, intelligible representation of your position?
Yeah, I let you talk for about a minute there. You agreed? Fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd like an answer to the question.
Okay, state your question again, and then I'll take less time.
So that you said two things. The first thing you said was that you cannot falsify God, means that you don't have a rational defense for your position. But then the second thing you said was that you want.
Those are not the same thing. I didn't notice that the first time I watched it. Did he just kind of sleaze those together?
I missed it. I was reading the comments.
I think he said, like, you admitted that you can't falsify God, therefore you don't have a rational basis for your non-belief. I think that's what he just said. Let me wind it back.
Oh, yeah, but rational just means, like, by that he just means some sort of deductive argument, you know.
Maybe.
Necessarily the case.
Let me take it back and see.
Yeah. But that doesn't make any sense because your reason is arbitrary. So your second criteria of belief has been completely it doesn't make any sense to say what you just said, because you're being arbitrary in your reasoning. You're not being rational. So you've defeated your own second line of reasoning with your first line of reasoning.
Okay. Are you done?
So do you have anything that's consistent that we can work on moving forward, that you can defend or that you can present, you know, as a consistent, intelligible representation of your position?
Yeah, I let you talk for about a minute there. You agreed? Fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd like an answer to the question.
Okay, state your question again, and then I'll take less time.
So that you said two things. The first thing you said was that you cannot falsify God, means that you don't have a rational defense for your position.
Yeah. You can't falsify God, therefore you don't have a rational defense for your position. That's not what that means.
Or did he say you can falsify God, comma, you don't have a rational grounds for your position?
I think he said so.
Okay.
If you hit left or right arrow, it should go back and forward, I think, 5 seconds.
It doesn't show up for me. I don't know why, but I'm on a laptop. I don't get the quick 5 seconds back.
Do you have anything that's consistent that we can work on moving forward, that you can defend or that you can present, you know, as a consistent, intelligible representation of your position?
Yeah, I let you talk for about a minute there. You agreed? Fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd like an answer to the question.
Okay, state your question again, and then I'll take less time.
So that you said two things. The first thing you said was that you cannot falsify God, means that you don't have a rational defense for your position. But then the second thing you said was that you wanted.
Yeah, he just equated. He equated. You can't falsify God, therefore you don't have a rational defense for your position. Like, he thinks that's how Darth or how PineCreek is making that connection.
Right, and so if you remember the very beginning of the stream, what did PineCreek ask that would have been helpful in this situation? What do you mean by rational, right? And what half an hour later, it turns out they seem to be talking past each other, because they're using rational in different ways.
Yep. Yeah, but yeah, that idea that, because Doug had already laid that out. Like, he's trying to say, like, I'm not inclined to believe in this. I don't see a reason why, to believe in this. But if you're asking me to falsify it, I can't do that. I can't falsify this particular thing as defined. And so JRobin's like, okay, well, you said two things. You said you can't falsify it, and then you don't have and then he's blending that together, because the and then, this is all part one. You don't have a rational basis for your disbelief, and now he's going to move on to the second one.
Or you couldn't find a reason to believe in God. But if your position is irrational on the onset, if we understand that, then your second line of reasoning gets destroyed by your first line of reasoning, because your rationality there's no rationality to the claim that you're making or to the position that you're staking out, because you're being arbitrary with your reasoning.
That doesn't make any sense at all, what he just said.
Feeding your own standard of belief when you're applying one thing to the other. When you're applying your standard of belief to one worldview, meaning the God worldview.
Okay, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I need to rethink. So what do I do now?
I'm getting this right. You do believe that you're being irrational.
Well, I'm saying maybe you're right that I am irrational. What do I do now?
Okay, so then you would accept the Christian worldview as true.
Well, how do we go from God to Christianity?
Well, you're being arbitrary, so it wouldn't matter anyways, right? So why don't you be a Christian right now?
Well, it mattered when I brought up Islam. You said no. Okay.
No, that's not what we're talking about. I was asking for your rational defense, but we've established.
Okay, so maybe I am irrational. What do I do now?
So then accept Christianity. It shouldn't be hard if you're being irrational. You're being arbitrary.
This is odd. He just started.
Okay. Robin, very, very good. You said, okay, I'm irrational. I should accept Christianity, right?
No, I'm just look. This is baffling to me that you're being irrational. I'm just using your own logic against you. So
I granted it to you.
If you're being right, so I'm just going to use it against you, because you obviously.
And I'm asking for your help.
You think you're being rational?
I don't really get this. There wasn't a logical argument presented from Doug for which JRobin can use against him. He's just using Doug's claim that he was irrational, and then trying to extrapolate from that how he's going to be wrong about stuff, and not be able to get anything right. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he's just continually trying to weaponize it, right?
And it doesn't make sense, because he would have gotten there anyway. Doug just beat him to that point.
It's just weird, because he thinks it's like this horrible thing that he's got this atheism position that's irrational, right? It doesn't have good reasons for it, according to JRobin. And he's criticized and mocked Doug for that, but then wants him to take an irrational position what?
Yeah, this makes no sense. Yeah, this weird appeal, like, oh, well, if you can just arrive at something irrationally, then you could arrive at Christianity irrationally too.
You're dumb for adopting positions irrationally. Now I want you to adopt a position irrationally.
Right. Yeah, and it's weird. That's because
dumb.
He told him before, like, well, you don't have any self-respect and you're not being an adult because you're being irrational. But now it's like, okay, well, if you're going to remain irrational, well, can't you just be irrational for Jesus? Well, I had asked the same question that PineCreek asked him. Well, you tell me. You tell me if I'm being rational or not. But he gets into something here with Islam that's super cringe.
No, but you're afraid of rationally defending it because you know you can't. So listen.
But Robin, I'm asking for your help.
I'm just going to use what you said. You said you're being irrational and arbitrary. So then it should be no problem becoming Christian right now, right?
Okay, well, how do I do that?
Accept the truth of Christianity.
How do I do that?
Accept Christianity as true. You don't know how to believe something?
No.
How do you believe something? Do you know how to do that, Tom? To just make yourself believe something?
Well, I'm not a doxastic voluntarist, so I don't think you can just decide to believe something. I think that you are convinced of things, and then you believe them. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand this.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you could just accept it. I can just accept. Like, this is the thing that I find odd about this kind of stuff, because I think this kind of gets to like the aspect of Pascal's wager, right? Because people will end up kind of short-handing Pascal's wager to this, like, yeah, it's kind of cynical because it's sort of a pragmatic. There's a pragmatism to it that's kind of ugly about it, right? But actually, what he was kind of doing was, look, there's no way that you're going to know for certain, so you might as well just assume it as the case, in the hopes that you're going to benefit from it after you're dead. And I feel like if JRobin understood Pascal's wager better, he might actually be able to present that to Doug in this case. But that's not what he's doing. He's not doing the whole kind of thing like, well, if you stop and think about it, yeah, you may not be completely convinced of it in your heart, but if you're even 60 to 70%, leading in the direction that there's this being that created everything and that it's actually going to condemn quite a bit of you, and if you believe in it and say that you love it and try to do what it says and all this other kind of stuff, follow its words and its prophets or whatever, all the rules keep changing as time goes on, but that they don't care about that. But anyway, if you do that, you can't really know it. There's going to be lots of inconsistencies, but that's just part of being human. But hopefully when you die, you get the big prize at the end. But JRobin comes from a cult of Christianity that believes you have to know it. It's the same. I mean, it's similar to the groups of Christians that I was in. They knew God was real. They didn't believe it. They didn't think that God might be real. It wasn't a probability. It was a definite thing. They would claim to love God and acknowledge his existence. They talked about, you confessed God. You didn't theorize or hypothesize about him. So what JRobin here is attempting somebody to do, this is the thing I like the most about the mainstays of theology maintaining themselves in modern society. This thing that we know about the brain that is consistent with doxastic involuntarism, which tends to make doxastic involuntarism, I think, more objectively scientifically true than doxastic voluntarism, is that you really can't choose your thoughts. You can't choose how convinced you are of certain things. You definitely can't choose how certain you are of things. It depends on the information you're exposed to, experiences, biases, wiring, etc. There's just bundles and bundles of things that go into that kind of stuff. But JRobin is acting like he's either never heard of that or doesn't really understand its weight. You can just choose to get it. Like you've solved a math, like this is like if you showed somebody how to do a math problem and you get to the right answer, right? You can tell that the kid that you showed does not understand the steps, doesn't understand what any of this means, can't comprehend the reasons why this was done. But you show them the answer and you're like, look, it's as plain as the nose on your face. Why can't you just accept it as the truth? Because they either don't understand it or they didn't follow it or whatever. And that we're talking about something like math, something that can be clearly demonstrated with a beginning and an end that's true. Not in all cases of math, but I think everybody knows what I mean. JRobin's acting like that with God. And that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't treat math like this to somebody who was skeptical about what I had done with a math problem or some equation or something like that. But JRobin expects somebody to believe this about a deity that is poorly defined as the God he's talking about. A mind that is not made of anything, anywhere, at any time. Neat.
What exactly do I need to do and accept?
Accept the Christian worldview, which is that God exists, that he is foundational to all of reality, and that is the Christian God specifically, that is the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and that the Son is
like,
paid the price for your sins.
Okay, so in order I need to accept that Jesus Christ died and rose again, and that's it?
That's the core, that's the foundation of Christianity. Yes, it's called Christianity for a reason.
Okay.
It's about Christ. So yes.
And how do I accept that Jesus Christ died and rose again?
How do you accept it?
Yeah, because right now,
a belief you simply accept. You choose not to rebel against the knowledge that you have in God. God says that all people have been shown God's revelation, that you have a choice whether or not you're going to accept or reject it. You've obviously chosen to reject it, so just to turn from that rejection to acceptance, to realize that you're in a state of that God has.
I know, Robin.
You'd be justly punished for the sins that you've committed, and realizing that Jesus Christ is your only way out of it.
I love how he was avoiding this kind of stuff, right? Like he didn't want to talk about Islam. That's local atheism. I don't want to talk about Mormonism. But now the Christian theology is pouring out of this kid like diarrhea. And
well, that means that Doug has succeeded.
Yeah,
he's gotten him to talk about Christianity.
Yep.
It's just not 100% success. So
okay, but
you will be justly punished.
But this is what I need help from you, because I truly don't believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead. How do I choose to believe that?
Well, I thought you're being irrational and arbitrary, so this shouldn't be hard for you. Just choose to believe the other thing. If you chose to believe what you do believe now off of no rational basis. So how do you?
Wait a minute. Are you asking me to choose that Jesus Christ rose from the dead for irrational reasons?
No, that's not what I said.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said.
That is what JRobin said. The funny thing is, if anyone you go back and watch this, if you watch the original video and watch the comments going on in the live chat, I think one of them is from Floyd FP, and he kind of reacts the same way. And it's got like he's like actually shocked, like what the fuck is he? What? he wants you to just accept Jesus for irrational reasons? Like, okay.
Said you've chosen to be irrational and to be arbitrary with your reasoning when it comes to the not God position. So then there should be no reason why you're not a Christian. It should be easy for you to switch to the Christian position.
Right. You said
asking me all this, why this and the other. If you're being irrational, why should that matter? Of course, I do have reasons for being a Christian, but I'm addressing you on your own terms. You told me.
Doug didn't make an issue out of the irrationality. JRobin did. So, and now
this whole thing is just a huge shit show right now.
At this point, JRobin has lost his own plot. Like, look, he didn't make an issue out of it being irrational, and he already explained it away to you. He already told JRobin, the reason I said it was irrational is because that's your worldview as a precept. Your worldview is that anyone who doesn't start with the presupposition that that there is a God is irrational. That's why I answered that way. And then JRobin's still trying to hold him to, like, well, you said you're irrational, so I'm just saying, like, well, if you, this still makes no sense. Like, does he think that that insane people who like really irrational people who really cannot follow, a couple things at a time, cannot follow a train of thought, can be made to believe just anything? You can just walk up to a schizophrenic and tell him, like, you know what, Santa Claus is real. Believe me. Okay, will do. Like, I don't get where JRobin's going with this. This is just really ignorant.
You're being irrational. You told me you're being arbitrary. So then I don't have to give you any logical reasoning or anything. Like, you can just believe in Christianity for no reason. Why but are you asking me to believe in Christianity for no reason? No, I'm just addressing you on your own terms. So if you're being irrational, if give me a good hang on. If you're being irrational, Robin, and arbitrary, Robin, I really do want to have a conversation with you, but you're making it very difficult because you're just talking. At least we could even have 10 seconds of silence. It's fine. We can relax, chill out. But you're not saying I should just accept Jesus Christ rose from the dead for irrational reasons, right? I don't think you're saying that. Are you saying that? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. You know what you're saying. You know this. If you've been tracking the conversation, you know exactly what's going on.
Hates clarity. Hates clarity.
Hates it. Yeah. Nope. Let's go back to the generalities.
Should have answered that rationality definition question in the beginning. You wouldn't be here, JRobin.
Shown arbitrary. If that is true, if I'm just holding you to your own claims here, standard, okay? Right. If that is true, then there should be no problem with you just accepting Christianity right now. Right. Okay. You're being irrational.
Okay, but listen, Robin. But listen to my.
That makes no sense. Like if that applied, then literally everyone that they've always been talking to should just have no issue just accepting God. But the problem with this is that he's blowing up what he's been given by Darth. Revelation is the basis for rationality. If he's irrational, he can't decide that God is real, because that means if he's truly irrational, it means he's somehow been deprived of revelation, special or general, in a theological sense. And that's not fucking possible. The only thing that's theologically possible from the Christian worldview, especially like an evangelical like this guy, is that he's denying the truth and unrighteousness, which does not make one irrational. Paul doesn't say those people are irrational. These guys have run with it and said, oh, well, Paul, you get that right there. Right? And Paul's basically saying these people are wrong from the jump, so we can own them from the beginning. Like, no, read Paul's letters again, then get back to us. And try to read the letters that he actually wrote. Not, he didn't write the pastoral epistles. Get it right. But, oh my God, this is, I mean, this isn't just bad philosophically. This is bad theologically.
This is just all around bad at this point.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, if you are trying to minister to a person, this is not ministering to people in good faith. If you get if you're dealing with somebody like PineCreek and you think that this person is truly insidious or something, that means you need to be more honest, more straightforward, more charitable, more gracious, more kind. You don't dick around with this stuff and then pretend like you're going to play like Billy Badass at like, and then, oh, well, you know what, for you atheists, for this atheist, because he's going to be a hostile witness, the Jesus I'm going to present to him is going to be all stick, no carrot. That's not how you're supposed to fucking minister. Like, I'm not that far removed from my upbringing in the Christian church to know that is not how you fucking do things. This is exactly, and hopefully JRobin hears this. JRobin, this is exactly how you get people to run screaming from Christian churches. Please continue to behave this way, especially if you want to go to a church and be completely alone in the pew or just at the pulpit talking to the wind.
No, these online soldier Christians, combat Christians, whatever you want to call them, they're like, drones, and they're like bees, right? You got your queen, you got your drones, you got your warriors. They all have their roles. Like people like JRobin and Darth, they're combat Christians, they're soldiers, right? And these types of Christians, they don't go to church. They don't go to church. JRobin's not going to church. People that act like this can't sit in a pew and listen to a preacher maybe get some things wrong. They're not going to do that. They're not going to go fellowship with other Christians. They're not doing that. JRobin don't go to church. I'd be surprised if he goes to church.
Yeah, I would. I mean, like you said, if you said that if he's hanging out in clubhouse things and he gets to a point, well, maybe he does. Maybe that's one of the reasons that triggers him. He wants to be able to do this kind of shit in the church that he's at. But then again, I know nothing about JRobin. I don't know anything about his personal life. I don't know if he's single, married, gay, straight. I think he's from DC. That's about the only thing I know about him.
I don't know anything about him either.
Yeah, but yeah, he. I mean, all I know is that he spent 5 months on and off, almost 5 months, wearing out his welcome on Skeptic Generation, and then apparently that wasn't enough for him. So now he came on here, and I think PineCreek might let him back on. Given the way the comments and stuff were going on his stream today, there was popular demand to have him back.
I mean, Doug might talk to him again, but I'd be surprised if Doug is as patient with him like this again. I mean, look, Doug was already expecting it to probably go something like this, and right, the fact that it played out and he had to mute him and all that stuff, and he was trying really hard. You don't just keep doing that. You prove your point, and you're now licensed to say, hey, like, look, I gave him a chance. Look what happened, right? You don't just keep doing it though, right? You don't. I mean, I don't see him interacting this long with JRobin again, unless JRobin comes at it from the start very differently.
Yeah, it calms down a little bit. Like, it's like, if you're going to have this conversation, maybe do something about that raging boner in your pants that's making you nervous and super awkward. Apologies to the audience if that's too gross, and apologies to my guest, Tom Rabbittt, if that's a little bit too much.
Nah, that's all right, man. I'm not clutching any pearls.
But JRobin may have been clutching at his pearls, if you know what I mean, during this conversation. Like, there's something, I don't know, there's something weird about the way he goes at these. Like, there's like a little bit of the S&M in this.
Oh, you know what? I gotta, before I
You know?
forget, since there's a lot of viewers now, I was listening to them yesterday. These guys, right? They say that they're on here to save souls. And they say that, what does Darth say when he gets caught, you know, laughing at someone dying, or Madeline Murray O'Hare, may her soul rot in hell, because he likes the idea of that, right? I caught them the other day. They were JRobin too. JRobin that was there. And someone brought up that Matt Dillahunt is in the hospital and he's about to get heart surgery. He probably already had it. I don't know. Hopefully it's okay. And JRobin said, hey guys, we should pray for him, huh? And they proceeded to mock and make fun and laugh at the fact that he could potentially die.
Fun. Well, that's neat.
Yeah, these are your Christians.
This is the so I know they don't like the idea of atheist fruit inspectors, you know, but that right there is why that was the stuff that lured me away from Christianity, because I know JRobin wouldn't be satisfied with this because he wants to talk about global atheism, not local atheism. But for me, Christianity, a lot of what I thought was interesting about it was that this interaction you were supposed to be having with Jesus meant that the Holy Spirit was going to work in your heart and make you a better person. And a lot of people that I think the way Christians talk about it, they make it entirely like the self-absorbed, self-involved kind of neurosis kind of thing, a spiritual neurosis, so that you don't pay attention to the fact that, or at least you lose track of the fact that everybody around you that's a Christian is supposed to be getting better. They're supposed to be becoming more gentle, more kind, patient, charitable. Basically, it's supposed to turn Ebenezer Scrooge into Ted Lasso, right? The vast majority of Christians that I met never even came close to being like even as cool as like Elon Musk, at least as awkward. But they didn't get better. You know, they still drank, they still smoked. I don't consider those things bad, but they all did, and they all had this self-loathing about it. They were all super inconsistent about it. They were judgy of people that came in that were too poor, too black, or too out of town, or whatever. Like, none of those kinds of tribal inconsistencies, none of the blind spots or whatever went away. And yet, that was one of the things that you're supposed to be able to see, fruits of the Spirit. And what did I see? I saw people who were Christians cheating on each other, getting divorces, just like any non-believer. And sometimes it rates higher than that. And at one point, two different churches got so bad that these were adult human beings. And as a kid, I'm watching this. These were adults that could no longer have productive conversations with each other anymore because things had gotten so awkward between them about their concepts of God. They couldn't even have conversations about anything. They could have an awkward, kind of fraught conversation about the weather, local politics, that's it. Fucking weird. So anytime somebody points out, like Tom's like, okay, these guys were on there and they were basically having a mock prayer session, essentially praying that they are wishing more harm upon Matt Dillahunty. That's consistent for me, because there isn't a Holy Spirit to make them better. They just think there is. But in a lot of these guys' case, I don't know if you've noticed this, Tom, I don't think they give a fuck that there's a fruits of the Spirit kind of thing. Most of these guys have just latched onto the fact that because they've solved the Dan Brown-like puzzle that is Christianity, that, the Illuminati and the secret knowledge to everything is Jeebus Christ, that they get a big pat on the back and a gold star and a guaranteed pass into heaven, no matter how big a dick they are. At least that's what it seems like to me.
my question. You're muted right now, so nobody can hear you. But listen, and I can't hear you either. But listen to my question. You're saying, I'm going to say what you said to me. You're saying, well, Doug, you just chose to be, if you were being irrational, you just chose to be an atheist. So now why can't you just choose to be a Christian? But I'm asking you a direct question now. Do you want me to become a Christian for irrational reasons? Yes or no?
Yeah, you already know. I've told you already. The answer is no.
Okay.
But I'm holding.
Okay.
I'm asking you.
No. Stop. Please. Because I asked you a yes or no question, which is very short. So give me a little more time, please. So now I'm asking you. Okay, if you're, in your opinion, I should not become a Christian for irrational reasons, I'm asking for your help sincerely. Please give me a rational reason to believe in Christianity as opposed to, let's say, Islam or some other religion.
Listen, I've already told you. There's two choices here. Okay, that makes it very clear. Everyone has been presented.
Now, Doug, after almost half an hour, he's getting to a point where he has orchestrated this conversation till now. He's potentially gonna get JRobin to actually. It's almost JRobin, if he falls for this, he's almost been like tricked, basically, right? Because JRobin doesn't want to be in a situation where he's saying, okay, here are the rational reasons for why the Christian God is true, because then those are going to be subject to scrutiny, right? So Doug's now gotten to here. Does it work? I don't remember exactly what happens, but I'm pretty sure there's further resistance.
Yeah, there. Well, what I like here is that because now this opens it up. I thought maybe we had missed it, but there's a bit here that's coming up about Islam that I wanted to point out. Because and JRobin biffs it
or reject that.
Okay.
You have a choice that you can make. Now, I'm asking you because you have arbitrarily chosen to reject against God. This shouldn't be hard for you to do. You just accept the revelation that's been.
Actually, I thought he'd already explained his reasons for not accepting God. He'd already told JRobin that he didn't see a reason to believe in that God is defined, but said he couldn't falsify it. And now JRobin is not getting that right, either on purpose or because he didn't hear him in the first time.
Presented to you. Now, are you ready?
Okay, let's do that. I accept the revelation that's been given to me. Now, someone comes up to me and says, Doug, why are you a Christian? What should I tell them?
So now Doug is having to orchestrate even more, right? Now JRobin caught on, right? So it's like, oh, so now it's like I don't know, trying to do psychology on like a child or something, right? He's like, okay, so we're not actually, no, you're not actually having to justify it. No, JRobin, I have a friend and they're not Christian. So what should I say to them? It's just like the lengths that he's got to go to get JRobin to even talk about Christianity, to give arguments, is just ridiculous.
What's interesting too is that JRobin has spent almost all of his time talking about Doug. I mean, he's been talking about Doug in relationship to the Christian God, but it's all about Doug and Doug's thinking and Doug's attitude and Doug's deeds and all this other kind of stuff. It's I don't know. If I were PineCreek, I'd be kind of flattered.
Okay, and they asked me, why should I believe that revelation? What should I say then?
You appeal to God's revelation. It's already been demonstrated to you. Now we look at the Christian worldview as but
I'd be lying.
Right. I love this because JRobin knows how to repeat the phrase, "Oh, you just appeal to revelation as it's been revealed to you." Doug brings up, well, I'd be lying because he doesn't I don't know that I have been. It has been revealed to me. I'm just saying that it is.
As a worldview, no, you wouldn't be lying if you accept God's revelation. Now we look at the Christian worldview wholesale. What is the worldview actually encompass? Okay, the Christian worldview has God as that which is ultimate, and everything else is the creation of God. And so we look at who God is, namely that he's ultimate, that he's a mind, that he's eternal, fundamental to all of reality.
But that could apply to Islam.
Omniscient, omnipotent. No, he doesn't. Omniscient, omnipotent. All of these qualities that are necessary.
My Muslim friends believe that
for human intelligence. No, they couldn't. I'll explain to you why in a second, but they couldn't. Not all of the properties. Some of them possibly, but not all of them.
Hear that right there. Some of them, but not all of them. That's a bitch move right there, because he and Tone, maybe not Tone. Tone's not smart enough to track this, but definitely that idiot Enlighten have been doing this thing where if you tell them those three properties, right? Well, I don't think that omniscience, omnipotence, and omnibenevolence, as I don't. There's some contradictions between the three of those as properties in a thing. If you just want to use those ones, or even if you just want to use omniscience and omnipotence, which he just did. JRobin did this to me on that Clubhouse thing with Pandemonium, because I had said something. He's like, well, do you have a rational reason? Why is it there is no God? And I said, because the properties that are often used to define God, I think, are incoherent. So he wanted to know what they were. So I gave him the definition of the God of classical theism. An immaterial mind that is spaceless and timeless, right? And so he wanted to go through them one at a time. One at a time. Oh, so you're saying that nothing. So what you're trying to tell me is that there can't be a God because anything that doesn't exist in space, anything that's outside of space doesn't exist. That's what he kept doing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Enlighten did the same thing last night on the atheist answers in atheism to Leo Filius. The exact same thing. Leo told him, he's like, this thing that you're defining as being, atemporal, that non-spatial, all this other kind of stuff. He's like, that's basically, that to me sounds like those are the same kinds of descriptions you would use for something that doesn't exist. Enlighten said, oh, so what you're saying is that just because something is infinite, it can exist? You just went after the one thing. Then told him he only wanted to deal with it one property at a time. Then left in a huff, went to Clubhouse, where he proceeded to do that with Darth Dawkins. And Darth Dawkins actually yelled at him because he told him he shouldn't have used the timeless thing, because philosophers with a little bit of sophistication can beat the shit out of an atheist or out of a theist who tries to assert that a God exists outside of time or something like that. I thought that was kind of unusual. I don't know if, maybe Darth got his hand bit on the timeless claim, despite the fact that he judged Enlighten for doing that. Within a couple of minutes, he was right back to defining God as eternal. So I don't know if he has a problem understanding that eternal doesn't mean infinite; it means timeless. But anyway, but that statement right there, that pissed me off. I talked to him over 2 weeks ago, and that was not the case, because I made the point. The God you're talking about is not one property, and he didn't give a shit. He strawmanned that argument down, and here he is admitting, no, the God of Islam cannot be that. It might have some of those properties, but it doesn't have the set. And since it doesn't have the set, it's not the God of the Bible. It's not the God of classical theism. It's not the real thing. But that's not how they debate with everybody. So if you see him or any of those other hand jobs making this argument in either direction, they either don't understand what they're talking or they're fucking flat out lying. My guess is it's an unhealthy combination of the two.
And so these are the properties of the Christian God that are held to, that are exclusive to the Christian God, and because of that, then we
Robin, I heard what you said. You said things about like.
I don't know if you saw those when I posted them up there, Tom, but I believe that's J.L. Warren, Bridge the Divide. He said, I invited JRobin to join this live chat. He's talking mad crap in Discord.
Who is?
JRobin.
Oh, in Discord?
He's on Discord somewhere talking some shit. If he's on politics and religion, I can't see him because I was banned.
I don't see him in there. Anyways,
I would enjoy seeing JRobin here. Well, we're just about done with this, so I'll keep going. Did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
No. At this point, I mean, it's
down. He's about ready to wrap it up, and I think he gets him with a great stinging towards the end here. But that little bit right there, that pissed me off, because that was JRobin admitting that any of those other times he's trying to talk about a God property by property, he's talking out his ass.
God being all powerful and so forth. But if someone were to ask me now that I'm a Christian, why are you a Christian? And I just say, well, because it's been revealed to me. And they say, well, so what? Tell me why you think it's true. What do I say?
I just gave you an answer, but I'm not going to play these charades with you and play.
I'm asking about justifying Christianity.
Yeah, he's going to go back to Clubhouse and play those charades. That's what this guy does. After he gets done here, he's going to take the diaper off that he filled, towel off, maybe apply some water and soap, truss himself back up, go on to Clubhouse and talk about what a big man he was and how he put it in Doug's mouth, forced it on him for a better part of an hour. This JRobin is a fucking tool.
That's not a charade.
I just did. I just gave you the properties of the Christian God. I just told you earlier about why we are Christians. We hold to Jesus.
But a God like that could exist, and yet Christianity is false.
I'm speaking. That we hold to the God of the Christian Bible, and that we hold that Christ is the sacrifice.
No, I don't want to hear about local theism. We want to hear about global theism. You need to go back to the God of classical theism, JRobin, and quit being so bitch made.
For our sins, and that we accept that. Now, you have two options here. You either choose to accept God's revelation or choose not to accept God's revelation. Asking me reasons,
right?
This, that, and the other shouldn't. I don't know why you're asking that if you claim to be irrational. You don't
no, Robin, you misunderstand me.
Reasons,
Robin, you misunderstand me. I'm asking you. Okay, I become a Christian now, and a third party comes up to me and says, "But why are you a Christian?" What do I say?
It's so transparent what Doug is doing too. It's funny, man, but it kind of works. I can't believe it works.
JRobin has appeared. Oh, the irrational atheist talking about me. Yeah, we are talking about you. We're talking about how you fell over and broke your dick in the dirt on this one.
Moving a little bit too fast here. You told me that your position was irrational. Okay.
Yeah, and then I became a Christian.
Are you ready? Are you ready now to accept Christianity?
Yeah, and I said yes, and then I say, okay.
So hold on a minute. You're a Christian now.
Yeah, I'm a Christian now.
Okay, that's great. So if you want to ask me questions later, then we can do that. We can have a private.
No. Why do you want to leave now?
Well, no, because it seems like
now I'm naked.
It's obvious that you're lying to me. I can tell that.
Why is it obvious? Whoa! Why are you calling me a liar?
It's obvious that you're lying to me.
Why do you think I'm lying to you?
If you're actually a Christian, then I'm glad to hear it. And then if you want to contact me later, then we can.
Why don't you want to talk about Christianity with me now?
Because you're lying. You're lying to me.
Why do you think I'm lying to you?
I'm not gonna explain to you why. If you know you're lying, you know that I know.
How do you know I'm lying to you?
Everyone here knows that you're lying to me. Then there's no.
I'm asking you. Okay. Why do you think I'm lying to you?
And pretend like you want to have a conversation.
This is interesting. This is typical for JRobin. He has no problem making the claim that Doug is lying about this, right? But this is a tough part. If and this is the point of this, JRobin. I know you don't really get context and you don't seem to take subtleties very well. But the implications associated with the style of apologetic that you approach, you would end up running into a situation like this where you badger somebody and maybe you get them to a point where they accept Jesus, but then you bail because let's say they were an atheist and you think that they're a scumbag and you treat them with as little respect or even less respect than you showed to PineCreek on PineCreek's channel, right? And then that person actually does have something of a change of heart. Maybe not a full 180, but something of a change of heart. You have to go fuck off because your job is done. You're a shit Christian. All you got to do is go and read 1 Peter to find out how shitty a Christian you are in comparison to this. Don't take my word for it. I'm just a blinkered atheist. I'm denying the truth in my own righteousness. Go read your New Testament. Read 1 Peter. Figure out how a fucking Christian's supposed to act. What's the Holy Spirit supposed to be doing for you? Pretty sure it's not fucking this.
We're not going to get anywhere.
But I'm asking you about how to justify Christianity. You don't want to do that?
I told you. I gave you the properties of the Christian.
JRobin's like, hey, I know what you're trying to do. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hey, no. I see what you're trying to do. You're actually saying it's your friend, but it's really you trying to get me to be rational and give you my reasons for Christianity. Hey, wait a minute.
You're trying to make a good point.
You can't fool me.
make sure. Hold on a minute. Stop.
Okay.
You told me earlier that you're being irrational.
You've said this like 5 times. Well, let's get
right, because it doesn't seem like you're understanding it.
Way more than
and
5.
then you want to lie
Yeah.
and contradict yourself.
I want to talk about Christianity now.
So hold on a minute. If you accepted the truth of Christianity, if that's what you did on the dime right now,
yeah,
okay, then I'm happy for you. Okay, I highly doubt that's the case. Okay, and so if that's the case, if you did, then you can talk to me later. But I think
why do you doubt that?
I think I did what I came and set out here to do, which is to, one, show the incoherence of atheism, which is kind of the whole subject matter here, because you're an atheist show. I wanted to see if
I'm a Christian show now.
It's obvious that that's not rational, the atheist position. And if you finally turned over,
what's the part where he showed that atheism?
You don't want to talk about Christianity now?
Because I missed that part.
Yeah. I mean, unless he's talking about the part where Doug said that he is irrational, and then JRobin is extrapolating from that okay, if this one Christian admits to being irrational, it follows that all Christians by extension must also be irrational. But I didn't hear an explanation or a reason or an explainer or an argument or anything. We didn't even really get a synopsis. So actually, we didn't even get good reasons, did we, from JRobin? Usually he would say, like, you're denying the truth and unrighteousness, or suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, or something like that. And quote,
Tell JRobin to come in here. Hell, you can come in here.
Yeah. Post the
You can tell me how it's necessarily the case that God must be always truth revealing in order for there to be intelligibility. That'll be fun to finally get that argument.
Again, do you think it's going to work this time? Do you think it's going to take?
No. He won't answer questions like that. He won't give arguments like that.
If he comes in, he's got to tell somebody to invite me back into politics and religion so I can continue my reign of terror. I'm exaggerating. I never had a reign of terror at politics and religion. I barely listened in, but Darth's going to be going back soon, because it's only a matter of time. I mean, JRobin is getting so frustrated and cooped up over there that he had to make a run at Doug. So I can only imagine what Darth's going through.
No, because you're lying to me. It's obvious. I'm not gonna.
What makes it obvious to you?
If you can't figure that out, then I don't have anything to say to you.
You just told me I could just choose to become a Christian. Yes.
Yeah. Listen. These are the sleaze tactics that you've used before. I've seen your interactions with other people, and this is exactly.
Robin, I'm being very sincere with you right now. Please, Robin, please listen to me. Okay, you're muted again, but please listen. I'm going to be very sincere with you. I can see you're still talking, but I'll wait till you. Yeah, I'm going to be very sincere with you. You earlier just said that I could just choose to be a Christian. And when I did, you called me a liar. You don't believe me. Now, if what you said was true, please listen to me, Robin. If what you said was true, that I can just on a dime choose to become a Christian, then why do you doubt so much I really am? Okay, I'll unmute you.
That's a great point.
These are the sleaze tactics.
And JRobin, watch this. JRobin does not touch that.
Seen you used before. Okay, these are the tactics that are dishonest, bad faith tactics I've seen you use in the past. And so I'm not a stranger to anything that you're doing right now. Okay, I'm very familiar with how you interact with other people. I'm very familiar with it, and I think I did what I came here to do. I think the mission has been accomplished. You've been shown to be completely irrational. And honestly, if you do want to turn to Christianity, then you can contact me later. But this is not, of course, not the place for it right now. So.
Welcome, JRobin. We're just going to wrap up the rest of this video here real quick.
No, I'd like to hear from you how it is the case that there's no God.
Hang on, we're going to play this. We're gonna play.
Well, you can ping me on Discord after you're here. I'm not here.
How do I contact you later if I have questions?
So if you don't get to talk right away, he just chickened out.
What?
We had a minute left, not even a minute left of this, and I told him I want to play the rest of this because I was playing this for the audience, and he said, "Okay, well then you can come talk to me on Discord," and just fucked off.
Wow!
What just a fucking bitch! All right. Link's open, guys. JRobin chickened out because he's terrified of me and the little white rabbit. Daisy, how are you doing? You're muted, but you're on here. I'm going to play the rest of the video, so we will chat with you in a minute. If you're getting around or anything, don't worry about it. I'm going to play out the last of this.
For Christianity.
I'll send you something in the chat. Don't worry about it.
What's your name in the chat?
I'll send you something in the chat.
Or you can go onto Discord. I'm on Discord.
What's your name on Discord or in the chat?
It's the same. It's my same name there. In politics and religion. So.
Brooklyn signature Darth.
Send me a DM or-
Okay. And you'll talk to me then about Christianity?
Sure. We could have.
Sure.
We could have a talk.
I don't understand why you're willing to talk to me in the future about Christianity, but not right now. You got something to do?
Because no, I don't have anything. I don't have anything in particular. But
Well, then why not just talk to me now?
I know that because I know that you're lying to me. So if you want to talk to me later about it, then you can. You know where to get me. You know where to find me. And that'll be that.
Okay. Well, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't want to talk about Christianity now. I mean, if I can just choose to become a Christian, like you said, and then I do, and then you call me a liar, I'm perplexed.
So that's pretty much it. JRobin, I'm not going to ping you when we're done. We are done with the video. I said I was going to play out the rest of that for the audience because that was sort of the point of my show. So if you would like to come in and chat, go right ahead. The link is still pinned. So, Jay, how you doing? Daisy, how are you?
Hey, JRobin, I hope he's not a salesman.
I don't know if he's a salesman or not.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it sounds like he'd sell you something, but then when you got questions, he won't answer.
Well, he's coming in now, so let's see what he's got to say. All right, welcome back, JRobin.
Evening. So, are you ready to answer how it is the case that there's no God, Jefferson? Since the last time we talked, you failed miserably.
Well, you can talk to me, J.Robin. You can
Hold on,
talk to me.
hold on. I'm asking Jefferson a question here.
Yeah, but I'm saying that like
I'm asking
I
Jefferson
actually-
a question, Tom. This is not your show, unfortunately. It's Jefferson, so I'm asking Jefferson if he wants to defend his position.
is that what dictates who you want to talk to? Who
I
is
can
show?
talk
Yeah,
to-
that wasn't
I can talk to
exactly-
whoever- I can talk to whoever I want to talk to. He invited me on here. I'm coming on here. So Jefferson, we talked last time. Last time I talked to you, you failed miserably in defending your position. Have you thought up a new argument for how it's the case that there's no God?
No, because
So you're still irrational.
Did I make that claim or did Doug? Are you?
No, I
confusing
mean,
people again?
no, you're still irrational because if you failed miserably the last time, you haven't revived your argument, then you're still irrational. If you're irrational last time, you're irrational now.
I didn't give you an argument. I gave you reasons.
That's right. You didn't give me an argument. That's right.
Well, let's
You're
not make the
completely
same
irrational.
mistake that
Hang on a second. Before this gets a little too fucked up, I just want to make this point right now because JRobin would like to take me into what he would like to have happen, which is round 2 with PineCreek. But I'm not going to fall for that, mostly because the question that
So
he's
you
asking...
don't have a rationale for your atheism?
Hang on, I wasn't done talking yet. And I'll let you know when you can. Tom, what were you going to say?
well, I'm just gonna say if you're going to engage with JRobin, you should not make some of the same mistakes that we saw in the last video, and you should actually get a definition of rational. You should actually get a You should actually hash out
All right.
what
So
exactly.
if you don't know rational means, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to have a conversation with you if you don't know what it means to be rational. Okay.
Well,
We want your definition of
So
it.
you guys have
do you have a rational definition or rational explanation? I should say.
I mean,
for how
this is
the case
just.
that there's no God.
I mean, for example, do you think that
I'm not
incoherent
talking.
means not?
So Tom, I'm not talking to you.
Why are you so
Jefferson,
afraid
do you
of
have
me,
a
bro?
Tom Jefferson? Do you have a rational?
You're gonna
defense?
need to slow your roll, man.
Do you have a rational defense for your position, Jefferson?
What
Yes,
does
I
that
think you
mean?
do.
If you don't know what it
Well,
means,
hold on a sec.
I'm not. So, by the way, Tom, you're not Jefferson's mouthpiece. Jefferson can speak for himself.
I am on
No,
cocaine.
hang on.
Jefferson,
All right, hang on. This is what we're gonna do.
do you not know what rational
just-
means? If you don't know what it means, then we're done.
You need to calm down because I got to do some moderating here. Everybody else that's in here, what I'm going to do is I did bring you in here because I didn't think JRobin was going to come back. Let me. I'm going to put you guys out. All right. The link's still up, but I'm going to set you guys out there. JRobin can stay. Obviously, Tom's going to stay here because we kind of arranged this in advance. So I'm going to move you guys out of here. because I can already see this is going to turn into a lot of crosstalk if there's too many people in. So everybody that's in the back,
this isn't going to last very long if you don't know what rational means. So I'm just going.
I'm asking you what your definition of rational is.
Do you know what? Do you have a rational defense for your position that there is no God?
Depends on what you mean by rational, bro.
Do you not know what rational means?
I do. What do you mean by it?
Good. So do you have a rational defense for your position from which it necessarily follows that there is no God?
Have you given up on trying to settle on terms?
We know what rational means. If you don't know what rational means, then I can't help you, unfortunately. I don't have the crayons.
I mean,
I don't have the crayons here to explain it to you.
Do you mean that?
Do you have a rational definition or rational explanation for your position?
Terrified.
Like I said,
I don't really care about what you have to say, Tom Rabbit. I don't.
Stop that. All right, he was my guest first.
I couldn't care less. You invited me here.
I didn't invite you here. Actually, JL Warren posted.
All right. So
the link did not come from me directly. I think it came from JL Warren. All right. You're welcome.
You verbally invited me on here. Yes, you did.
Yes, I did after the fact.
Good.
Yes, after the link was shared with you.
You didn't have to keep the link up. It's your channel.
The link to Discord? I didn't.
No, you didn't have to keep the links. This is your channel. You don't have to keep links on anything. You can
but I left it open after you stormed out the first time.
So do you have a rational defense for your position, Jefferson?
I already told you that I do, but you haven't answered my question.
So go ahead and give it. How does it follow that there's no God?
No.
So you're gonna chicken out like you did the last time. Actually, last time it was much worse. It was a colossal failure. Maybe I should post that onto my YouTube channel.
It wasn't you. How many of you were talking over me at the time?
There was
wasn't you and Antonio?
No,
you and Antonio were actually talking over. I'm going to mute you. If you continue to overtalk me, I'm going to mute you. Stop that. This is not your channel.
Hey, Rob, just
you guys did do that, and you do need to calm down. Here's the thing. I already told you.
There's no God, Jefferson.
I already told you that I think that I do have a rational definition, but I'm asking you to explain to us and explain to the audience watching what you think rational is. How do you define rational?
All right, so you're gonna dodge and evade and chicken out like you did last
time.
Look, here's what I think that JRobin means.
I'll give you one more chance. I'll give you one more chance, Jefferson.
So what I think JRobin means.
Tom, he doesn't need your help, Tom. He doesn't need.
Tell me why it necessarily. Look, this is just clarity. I don't know why you're so afraid of clarity.
Jefferson, how does it follow?
Can you just mute him for just 1 second so I can get this out?
Yeah, I don't want to keep muting you, but let Tom Rabbit finish his point, and then you can talk.
He'll probably leave. Anyway, but it doesn't matter. I think JRobin means, when he says, what's your rational reason? I think he means give an argument for why it necessarily follows. Now, that's what I think he means. And if that is the case, then we can proceed from there, JRobin. But there are different senses of rational, and for you to just hand wave and just say, oh, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're just like not worth talking to, ridiculous. Because like, what if I said, hey, and this actually happened to me the other day, right? If I said, hey, you've been alive, say JRobin, for like 25 years, and every single day you've observed the sun come up. Now, if your mom said to you, hey, I think the sun is going to come up tomorrow, would you call her irrational? Now, that's a sense of rational and irrational that doesn't seem to be what you're talking about, right? So if you could tell us, which sense of rational are you talking about? And then we can proceed with the conversation.
Okay, you finished talking? Because I'm not here to talk to Tom Rabbit. I'm here to talk to Jefferson Spatchcock. So Jefferson Spatchcock,
I would like you to answer his question.
How does it follow that there is no God, Jefferson?
I want you to answer his question.
Jefferson, how does it follow that there is no God?
Please answer Tom's question.
Just answer. Look, if you want to have a conversation, just answer the question, and we can proceed.
How does it follow that there is no God, Jefferson?
Please answer Tom's question. I'm happy to answer that question if you ask.
So you don't. So do you have? So let me get this straight. You don't have a line of reasoning or justification from.
I'm not even making you define it. I said, is this what you're saying? Question mark. You just have to say yes or no, and then proceed.
Jefferson. I think Jefferson knows what I'm asking him. How does it follow?
I'm not going to assume to know what you. I'm not going to assume your position.
How does it follow that there's no God, Jefferson?
I am not going to assume your position. Please answer my question or Tom's.
I'm waiting.
I'm
not going to wait all day either. So
neither am I.
Good. So
you're gonna.
I advise that we get this moving, or we can just call it a night.
So you don't want to settle terms. You don't want to define terms. You just want
I just asked you how does it follow. If you don't know what it means to say how does something follow, then I don't know how to help you there either.
Necessarily.
Okay, are you saying that you agree with Tom's definition then? You're
Yeah, how
answering
does
yes.
it follow necessarily that it's the case that there's no God? This is not
Yeah,
this
no
is
one
not
here thinks
controversial or
that.
complicated.
No one here thinks that.
This is not controversial. Your position, Jefferson, is that there is no God, correct?
I believe that there are no gods. Yeah.
Good. So how does that follow?
No. That's I believe that there is no gods is not the same as there is no gods.
Okay, Jefferson, how does it follow that there is no God?
How does it follow from what? My reasons, or are you asking for an argument?
How
You're
does
making
it follow?
the same mistake you
How
did
does it
before.
follow that there is no God, Jefferson?
How does it follow from what?
How does it follow? How is it the case?
JRobin, are you
that there is
asking
no
me
God,
my?
Jefferson?
I'm going to mute you because I'm going to explain this, and I'm going to explain this again. And I'm going to do it very slowly because it's my channel. If you are
God does
asking
not
me,
exist because, Jefferson, God does not
if
exist
you are
because.
if you are asking me for my reasons why I don't believe in something or why I believe something to be the case, that is very different than asking me to provide you with an argument to disprove the existence of something or prove the existence of something. Which one are you asking
God
me?
does not exist because, Jefferson.
Which one are you asking me?
Just finish the sentence, okay? Then we'll be done.
No. Which one are you? I just asked
God
a
does not
clarifying
exist
question.
because God.
What does that question mean,
Yeah,
JRobin?
look. It seems like this is not getting through to your head, so I'm gonna.
It's definitely not getting through to one of us. Not getting through.
He means it's impossible for a God to exist.
I'm gonna make this very simple for you. Just finish the sentence. Just finish the sentence, okay? I'm gonna rephrase the question. Just finish the sentence.
I'm not gonna play that game.
God does not exist because.
I'm not playing that game
Jefferson,
because that question.
God does not exist because. I don't need your help, Tom.
Tell me why it's impossible for a God to exist.
God does not exist because.
Do you mean like what Tom's saying?
I
need Tom here to.
God does not exist because I don't need Tom's help right now. God does not exist because
Jefferson does. You gotta understand. Jefferson needs a lot of help to understand.
I know he does. I know he needs help. So maybe you shouldn't have invited me on here because he's gonna get.
Yeah, is Tom getting you right?
God does not exist because, Jefferson.
Is Tom getting you right?
God does not exist because. I'm just gonna wait. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna wait.
JRobin, I thought you'd be interested. Is Tom misrepresenting your questions to me?
I'm gonna wait until you finish answering the question.
Do this better than me.
I'll give you. You can either boot me or offer you. I'll just wait until you finish answering the question.
Tom, can you ask the question you think JRobin is asking me?
No, you don't need Tom's help. I gave you the question. I gave it to you. I worded it the way I did. God does not exist because.
No, you don't. You don't want to clarify it.
Go ahead and finish the sentence.
I'm going to assume that you think that Tom is getting your position right. So.
Don't take Tom's advice on anything. I'm giving you the question. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything about what Tom said.
Right, but when
I'm asking you, this is a one-on-one conversation.
And I asked you a clarifying.
Don't ever talk about somebody having
like one-on-one conversation.
Being a non-good faith actor.
God does not exist because.
Stop, JRobin. Stop.
I'm just going to wait until you answer the question.
Good. That's best, as long as you're quiet. This is my issue with what's going on. I'm asking you clarifying questions and you don't want to answer them. And then when I ask Tom Rabbittt to provide me with what he thinks the answers are to my clarifying questions, you don't seem to want him to talk either, and you want this to be a one-on-one conversation. What I asked you last time was, is Tom Rabbittt misrepresenting your questions to me? Meaning, is he getting them wrong? And you don't seem to care. You're just repeating the same question. The question that you were asking me is fraught with problems. The first of which is a basic misunderstanding. Or if you're looking for my reasons for why I don't believe, that's a lower bar than asking me to present you with an argument for why there is no God or why the existence of one is impossible, whatever. I asked you, of those two possible forks, which one best represents the question you're asking me now? You just want my reasons for why I don't believe, or you want me to present you with some kind of deductive proof or some falsification for why God's impossible? Which one is it? Are you going to leave?
I told you I was going to wait for your answer to the question. You heard me. You heard what I said already. I told you, if you need to.
And I asked you
I'll say it one more time. I'll say it one more time. You can write it down. Take a good hard look at the words on the paper. Digest it. Mentally apprehend it. And then you can answer the question. This is the question. Pay careful attention. I'm going to say it slowly. Okay, for you. I'm going to say it slowly for you. God does not exist because.
See, remember when I talked about this in the very beginning of the stream, Jefferson? That after 95% of people they ask this question to, not understanding, and asking for clarification multiple times, how can it be any more clear to anybody? They don't want to be clear.
No. Yeah, clarification's definitely not desired.
So are you going to answer the question, Jefferson, or no? Just
Do you mind if I
don't waste my time?
Do
Just
you
so
mind
I
if
can
I
know what you're going to
Sure,
do.
can I
So
can I answer both? Can
Hey,
I
Robin,
answer
you're like
both?
kill
You can answer
screeners.
my question. Yes, you can answer.
Don't ever
welcome to
criticize anyone for being a bad faith interlocutor.
Are you going to answer my question, Jefferson?
I just asked you if I can answer both.
Both. I only asked you one question.
No,
I
but
phrased it a few different ways, but I answered. I'm
but
only
they can
asking
be
essentially one
that
question.
That question can be answered several ways.
No, I asked you how God does not exist because. So
if you're just
what you give needs to be therefore God does not exist. It's very simple.
There's no problem repeating it the exact
So
same
God does not exist because
won't use different words for clarification. This is unreal.
Yeah. This again, if I answer this question, and there's two different ways I can. If you want an argument or some kind of single property dispute of God or multiple property disproof of God, we could get into that, or we could get into some kind of inductive disproof of God. It's not really a disproof, but kind of the Santa Claus example, or some kind of.
Just say like, look, I mean, if he's not willing to give clarification to the question, then just tell us when you're ready, and then we'll just leave you on mute or something. You tell us in the chat when you're ready.
Yeah, if you'd rather not, I mean, because I want you to tell me what you mean by this question, because you seem to be acting as if what I'm presenting to you, JRobin, is something dishonest. But if you want my honest answer, you need to provide me with some kind of response to the clarification question that I asked.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like I said earlier, Jefferson, to just say, oh, you know what rational means. They have proprietary definitions for all sorts of things, not even God, right? And they have a proprietary definition of coherent, right? It doesn't mean that it entails some contradiction, right?
JRobin,
it means that it doesn't conform to the mind of God. So for him to say, hey, I'm not going to define that because you know what it means, that's absurd. You're known for having proprietary definitions.
And for losing, he's also known, along with several other people, for losing his shit when he realizes that somebody is using a definition of a term in a way that he doesn't agree with, or a way that he didn't. And if they had actually defined those terms beforehand, they never would have ended up in those little impasses. But I suspect, as Tom has been telling everyone here on my channel, that lack of clarity is something that you want. Because you can just hide in the mayhem. If you're interested in clarity and you want my honest answer to that question, I need you to tell me what you're interested in. Alex Malpass told Darth Dawkins this. He was giving his reasons for why he didn't believe, and Darth Dawkins tried to accuse him of committing some kind of some logical fallacy, right? A formal logical fallacy. And Malpass stopped him right in his heels and said, no, I'm not giving you an argument. You asked me for my reasons. I'm giving you my reasons. The kinds of fallacies that you're trying to invoke don't apply, right? I've watched you, JRobin, and Enlighten, and Tone Loke, and Darth are all doing this now. You ask somebody for their reasons for why they don't believe in God, and you treat it like what they're giving you is some syllogistic argument, and then you apply informal fallacies to their reasons as if they're formal fallacies to a logical deductive argument. And that is a category shift and massively confusing. It demonstrates a total lack of charity and a complete misunderstanding of not only the philosophy, but also the theology. So again, I'll ask you, do you want to answer my clarifying questions? Because if you don't, you can leave. If the answer is no, then you can just answer by leaving.
Yeah, I told you I was going to wait for an answer to your question. So everything you just said there, I didn't take it as an answer to my question. So
we're at an impasse. I want an answer to my clarifying question.
So I'm still waiting for an answer to my question.
So
everything you just said there wasn't an answer. So I'm still waiting.
I'm waiting for an answer to my question. If you do not give it, then you feel free to leave. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to play games if you're not going to define terms. This is just rule 101, man, of any kind of discussion.
Pretty reasonable request, man.
I mean, I can wait, but
Oh, so now it's just like
Okay, so I'll just give you the question. I'll give you the question one last time because apparently you didn't.
You don't need
understand
to.
it.
I need the answer to my question.
Apparently you didn't understand it. Okay, so we're talking
What do you
about
mean,
God.
apparently.
You didn't understand it. That's why you're asking for quote unquote clarification. You didn't understand it.
Exactly.
You didn't understand it. So I'm going to ask the question again. I'm going to ask the question again. I'm going to ask the question again.
You're going to ask it again?
Ways.
Are you going to ask it again?
So,
are you going to ask it again?
So,
will you ask it again? I'm
talking
just wondering if you're going to ask it again.
Yeah, I just told you I was. So
Okay,
we're
you're gonna ask
going
it again.
to
Right, that's
conceive
good.
of God, for one, as a mind that's ultimate to all of reality. That's number one. We'll conceive of God in that fashion. So if that's how we're going to conceive of God, then you're either going to be for, or you're going to believe that he does exist, or you're going to believe that he does not exist. Okay, that's for one. Now, your position is that God does not exist. So I want to know from you, God does not exist because. So whatever you say, it better be whatever you say, therefore God does not exist. I've already told you this numerous times. This is not complicated nor controversial. Everyone with a brain should be able to understand this.
Right. It seems to me that you're looking for a falsification for a concept that is poorly defined.
It's not poorly defined. I just defined it.
You said it was what?
I said it was an eternal, ultimate mind. That's what I said.
What do you mean by ultimate?
That all of the things derive and depend upon it. That it is a source for all things.
And eternal means timeless?
Yeah, without a beginning or an end.
Is it also spaceless?
It would be transcendent of everything else. So its basis might try to tie into that, but we're just talking about that which is ultimate and to all of reality, and it's a mind.
So you're talking about an immaterial mind that is instantiated by nothing, that exists in no time and in no place. It sounds like you're talking about nothing.
No, I'm not.
Can you define God as something other than
use this? Are you going to use this?
Hang on, no.
This
hang on,
terrible excuse for an argument?
No, that's not my argument. Right now, we're just hang on. Can you define God as something other than what it isn't?
I just did. I just told you he's ultimate and it's a mind. You introduced other concepts into it.
Ultimate compared to what? Okay, so can you?
That's what ultimate is literally means that it's defined as that which everything else depends and derives upon. I already explained this to you. Now you're the one that introduced concepts that are negative concepts and trying to attribute that to what I said originally.
You said it's timeless.
Talking about bad faith acting, that's what you do. That's exactly what you're doing.
No, timeless means that it exists outside of time, and if it's transcendent, then it exists outside of space. So it doesn't exist anywhere, and it doesn't exist at any point in time. And it's also, you've defined it as a mind.
No, it's not extended it's not extended in time. Okay, so to say it's not sure, but the way to verbalize it is that it's not extended or dependent upon time for its existence. Okay, because it's transcendent.
So it doesn't exist in
space either.
So does it exist all the time or none of the time?
Yeah, you're now applying a temporal aspect. Like, does it exist here or does it exist there? That's a stupid question to ask.
Okay, so then we're talking about no time. Yeah, then basically we're not talking about. You're talking about something that could not exist, right? That it could just as likely be something that doesn't exist.
No, that's not necessarily the case. How did you determine that?
I didn't say it was necessarily.
Okay, so then good. So then if it's not necessarily the case, and I want to hear your argument or whatever your rationale is that necessarily follows that there is no God. Very simple.
Again, you're asking for a falsification for this concept, but this concept.
Good, and so you just admitted that what you just said wasn't a falsification. So I'd like to hear something else because your first argument was a fail.
I didn't. Okay, so what now are you looking for?
You already know.
You're looking for a falsification for the concept of a God that's not. It's essentially the definition that you've given me is a ghost with willpower.
Yeah, you can mischaracterize and define it whatever you want to do it. I already defined it, and so you go ahead and give your answer when you're ready.
I already told you that that's not a concept that you could really falsify one way or the other. So I don't know what you're looking for.
Do you believe this being does not exist, correct?
I believe it's just as likely that being doesn't exist as does.
That's not what I said. You believe that this being does not exist, correct?
I believe it's just as likely that being doesn't exist.
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you.
Given the concept that you've rolled out, that's exactly
that's not what I asked you. Either you believe it exists or not, or either you believe it does not exist or not. There's two positions here. You either believe it exists or you believe it does not exist. There's no middle ground.
I know you guys like.
Are there any other scenario?
Yeah. I know you guys like to play in those.
True dichotomy. So are you going to accept the true dichotomy?
That thing is
true dichotomy ontologically, but when it comes
Yeah,
to
but it's just a conceptual one, right? I can hypothetically agree to it or hypothetically disagree to it with almost the exact same level of
Do you believe that this being exists or
separation.
no?
No, I don't believe
dude,
that. That's
JRobin, calm
Okay,
down.
so do you believe
man.
that this being does not exist, or you claim to be neutral?
Well, no, I don't claim to be neutral.
Okay, so then
My
you
claim
believe
was that it
so
could
then the
falsify.
only other option is that you believe it does not exist. Okay,
I
so
don't
how
think
does
that
it
that
follow?
thing
How does
exists.
it follow? No, those are the only three options that someone can verbalize. They either believe that it exists, they believe it doesn't exist, or they're going to hold to the neutral or non-committal position. That's the
You
only
don't
three
believe the
options here.
third one is. You don't believe
Okay.
the third one, right?
Yes, but those are the only three positions someone can verbalize. Okay, so it
No,
doesn't
they
matter
could
anyway. It
verbalize a
doesn't
lot
matter.
more than
Listen,
that.
it doesn't matter anyways because I asked you and you just said you don't hold to the assent or the neutral. So the only
Hang
other
on.
option is the negative.
Yeah,
So how
hang
does
on.
it follow that there is no God?
Tom, Jesus, shut up. Tom, or not Tom. Sorry, Tom. Jay, shut up. Tom, you wanna run with? I'm kind of interested about that because he said that there's only three positions that can be verbalized. Do you think that's true?
I mean, verbalized. I mean, like any position. Can be verbalized.
I'm asking you, Jefferson. Can you defend your position?
What was my position?
From the looks of it, you just told me that you don't affirm, you don't hold to the negation, or sorry, you don't hold to the affirmative, and you are not neutral. So then you deny the God's existence. So what's the defense for that logically or necessarily?
Well, I'm trying to understand this here because this just seems like a classic burden shift. So you're positing an entity, right? And it seems like the way that you're defining it is a little on the flabby side. You're asking me to defend the idea that it could not exist, right?
I'm asking you to defend the proposition that this being does not exist. Okay.
Right, but are you asking me to defend that, or are you asking me to defend the proposition that it's impossible for that thing to exist?
I'm asking you to your position is that it does not exist, correct?
I don't think a being like that exists. No.
Okay, good. So how does that follow?
That follows because that being or whatever that set of properties is also matches a lot of other things in the same set of things that don't exist. You've just defined something based on what it isn't.
It doesn't
rather than
follow.
based
It
on what
doesn't
it is.
follow from that. It doesn't follow from that it doesn't exist. That's a non sequitur fallacy.
How many
do you
things?
have a non-fallacious line of reasoning to give?
That wasn't fallacious. Consider
Yes, it
it
was
this
because
way.
it doesn't necessarily follow.
No, hang on. No, this is my
You
channel.
told me
So
yourself it didn't follow.
I'm going to
So
explain this.
you're being
Stop.
fallacious
You can. I'm sure you're going to say that a lot. You're probably going to get it wrong.
because it's true and you know it.
I don't know that I'm being fallacious, but
Well, then that's a shame.
You know what? I promise you. If you point out a fallacy that I'm engaging in, and Tom backs it, I can see that. There's presence of two witnesses. I think you can dig that.
Do you have a non-fallacious line of reasoning from which it follows that there is no God?
Okay. Well, so far there hasn't been anything presented, right, other than just a concept of a being loosely defined, right? And have you presented an argument?
Fallacious line of reasoning.
What is the only definitions, the only properties being allowed to me right now is that this is an immaterial, timeless, spaceless mind, right? Do any of the other properties of God need to cohere? Do they need to be?
The definition
obtained?
the definition I gave to you was that it's an ultimate mind, and if it could entail that it is, it transcends these other things, sure. But the definition I gave to you was that it's an ultimate mind. Okay, so how does it follow that it doesn't exist?
But for you, does that mean that it obtains all the stuff that the Christian God has?
No, because you're an atheist. I'm dealing with a general definition.
Okay,
extended properties
you
are
tried that
not
before.
on or off the
You
table
told
right now, but we're talking about
you told PineCreek
a general definition of God right now.
You told PineCreek in the video here because he was talking about these properties, and when he was asking, well, hey, there are Muslims I know that believe in a God that has these properties. You said no, they don't believe in their God might have some of those properties, but he doesn't have the whole set, not the whole thing. Now you seem to have stripped that away. You're presenting me with some scaffold of a God and asking me to.
You're a global atheist, right, Jefferson?
If by that you mean white atheist, yes, I.
Good. So how does it follow that what I just gave you is not existent or is not?
No,
true?
I don't think you're being honest because the properties.
How does it? I'm asking you to defend
not...
your position. So if you can't honestly defend your position, that's not my problem. Maybe you're afraid of your position, and me holding to the fire is threatening to you. I understand.
You're not holding my feet to any fire. There's
then it should be easy for you to defend your position non-fallaciously. The first rationale you gave was a fail. So do you?
You haven't done a good job. You've done a very good job of attempting to misrepresent a lot of positions that you believe I hold. But
Do you have a rational definition or justification for your position?
how many times are you going to ask me that question?
Until you answer non-fallaciously.
Can you present the actual God you wish me to reject?
I already did.
So your God is simply an immaterial mind that is spaceless and timeless.
That's the one we're talking about. Yes.
That's all your God is.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I already
Okay.
told you 3 times.
No, that God as defined, that sounds like the kind of concept for something that could also just as easily not exist.
We already went over this. It's a non sequitur. You already told me that doesn't necessarily follow that it does not exist. So you gave a non sequitur answer.
JRobin, it's just a rejection of it's a rejection of the
It's
premise.
a fallacy for a second time.
You're making a claim that this particular entity exists, but you haven't made an argument for why it does.
I don't need to give an argument. I'm asking you to defend your position. That's burden shifting. You should know that.
No, that's not burden shifting.
Did I not come here to ask you to defend your position?
You asked me if I believed in this.
Then I don't need to give an argument for my position. My position is irrelevant. I need you to defend your position because you claim to be an atheist.
You are burden
rational.
shifting.
So how does it? No, I'm not, because I didn't make a claim. You can only burden shift if you're the first one to make a claim, and then someone asks you to defend your claim, and then you turn and ask the other person. That's exactly what you're doing right now. You're talking about me defending my position when I didn't come here with a position to defend. I'm asking you to defend your position, which is that this being that I defined does not exist. So how does it follow?
So you don't believe it exists either, then?
How does it follow that this being, my position is irrelevant? How does it follow that this being does not exist, Jefferson?
I've already told you that based on what you're actually proposing here, that being really can't be argued for or against, as far as I can tell.
You believe it does not exist, correct? You believe, so hold on a minute. So are you conceding now you don't have a rational argument for how it follows that it doesn't exist?
I believe that entity doesn't exist in the same way I don't think that Santa Claus exists.
So you don't.
We're not talking about
to be clear, I want to get a clear answer to the question I just asked you. Your position is that you don't have an argument to falsify the existence of God.
The existence of this God, right?
Yeah, that's you believe it doesn't exist, so you don't have an argument to falsify it, do you?
No, because I already told you that I don't think that can be falsified.
Good. So then you're not rational. You're irrationally holding to that position.
No.
Yes, it is, because you don't have a rational justification for a non-existence.
Do you need to logically falsify everything you don't believe in?
When it comes to some sort of a metaphysical framework, yeah, it's gonna either necessarily exist or not exist. So if you don't have a necessary falsifier for it, then you're rationally holding to the negation of the position that I'm talking about.
Since it's the season, can you falsify the existence of Santa Claus for us?
So I want to get an answer to the question here. Do you have a rational defense for your position?
I just asked you a follow-up question.
No, I'm not going to answer your question until you answer mine. I want to get a resolution. I want to get a resolution to the issue.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting bored.
So I know this is very. I know this.
Stop.
I get it.
Stop.
Do you have a definition?
If you keep stop it. Stop.
Do you have a rationale?
Stop. Now. Right now.
No, you don't.
This is what I have a problem with. I've already told you, if by rational defense or some kind of rational justification for or against you mean, can I falsify it? I've already admitted that I can't. So why do you keep asking me this question? What I'm telling you is not that I have a problem.
Yes or no answer. I want to get a clear yes or no answer.
I'm going to continue to do this.
So the answer is no. You don't have.
I'm going to continue to do this because you are completely wrong-headed in this. The premise that you have presented to me, I'm rejecting just out of course. You haven't presented an argument for why this thing either must exist or does exist. You've just said, here's a concept for a thing. Now you tell me why that thing can't exist. I don't know why.
You believe it doesn't exist. So I mean, look, you believe it doesn't exist. You've already held the position. I want to see if it's rational or not. You've apparently said now. So I'm assuming because you didn't give me a straight answer. The answer is no. You don't have a rational defense for your position, right? You don't have a rational defense for your position.
The properties.
So why are you being irrational?
The properties of the being that you posited, right, can apply to things that just as likely don't exist.
Jefferson, why are you being irrational?
How is that being irrational?
Because you just told me you don't have a rational defense for your position. You hold that this being does not exist. Again, when we're talking about metaphysical frameworks.
JRobin, do you think a lack of falsification,
which is ultimate and foundational,
absence of rationality,
is going to be falsified necessarily?
JRobin, do you
or it's going to be, or it's going to be a step?
No. You
don't have a falsifier. So what? You don't have a metaphysical framework to stand on?
Do you believe that falsification, if falsification can't happen, then all rationality ceases to be, right? It has
not what
to
I
be
said.
false.
No, that's not what I said. I said that when we're talking about a metaphysical framework, that the one is going to be replaced with the other, and these are going to necessarily be the case.
We're not
because
talking about a
they are
metaphysical
all,
framework. We're
yes,
talking
yes,
about
it
the
is. That
existence
is
of an
exactly what we're
entity.
talking about. That is exactly what we're talking about here. Now,
Now you're changing the God.
have a falsifier? No, we're not. This is what we've
just
been
did.
talking about this whole time. We've been talking about the metaphysical worldview that is a creation distinction, that God is ultimate. That's another way of just saying that there is an ultimate God, and that
now
everything
you're
else
adding
is
more
creation.
stuff.
No, I'm not adding it. Creator creation distinction is just literally just another word for me saying that God is ultimate and everything else depends upon him. It's the same thing as saying that. Okay, it's the
Really?
same thing. It's just another. Yes, it is.
But that's not what you asked me. That's not what you asked me.
It's just
about.
the same. It's literally the same concept in different words. I don't need to verbalize a concept in every possible conceivable way in order for me to communicate the point. Okay, you understood what I said the first time, anyways. Okay, so your position is that it doesn't exist. Your position is that it does not exist. We've established here that you don't have a rational, logical falsifier for this being. So I think my job here is done. You don't have a rational defense for your position. You're being irrational. Thanks for proving my point.
And you proved that Santa's real.
Yeah. So now you're deflecting. You now prove my point that there is no God. You've proved my point. You already know this category error. Because God is not, because Santa Claus is not in the category of being something that is, one, you can be agnostic towards Santa Claus. Okay, for one, you can be agnostic. You can say, I don't know whether or not Santa Claus is real. Secondly, we're talking about that which either necessarily exists or necessarily does not exist. There's no contingency that God, is in the non-zero possibility on both ways. It's not possible.
Okay, so now you're not arguing for the one thing. You're actually arguing for the God out of the contingency argument, or like a modal ontological God.
No, we're talking about that which is necessarily either exists or necessarily does not exist. You have not provided. You believe it does not. You believe it does not exist. Correct? Yes, you've answered that question 50 times. You believe it does not exist. Now, when I asked you for a falsifier, you said you don't have one. So you hold to this position that God does not exist irrationally. Very simple.
That's not irrational.
Yes, it is, because you cannot falsify the position that you claim to be false.
No, it is. Really isn't.
It is irrational because you don't have a defense or a grounding or a justification for your position that would necessarily follow from which is required, because again, we're talking about that which is necessarily exists or necessarily does not exist. It's not.
Do you think it's irrational?
It's not
a possibility. Do you think it's irrational?
It's not a possibility. I'm speaking. It's not a possibility.
No, you've done enough talking. I want to hear what Tom has to say.
It's not a non-zero.
JRobin, do you think it's
this is my channel? I want to hear what Tom has to say. Knock it off.
JRobin, do you think it's irrational if I told you that the sun is going to come up tomorrow?
Okay, I'm gonna finish making a point. So we're talking about we're not talking.
That's
about
that not answering questions we were talking about, Tom.
Contingency.
Yep.
We're not talking about a contingency that is dependent upon something else, and that it may has a 50% chance of existing, 60% chance of existing, 70% chance, and 30% are on the respective other side. That's not what we're talking about here. So you cannot provide a necessary falsifier for this framework, this metaphysical framework, but yet you hold that it doesn't exist. That's what you hold to. So you're holding.
Do you think it's rational to think the sun comes up tomorrow, JRobin?
Do you have a response to what I just said, Jefferson?
Yeah. I am kind of curious to see if you're going to answer Tom's question. My guess is that you won't.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Because I have a feeling he actually thinks that it is rational to think that, but that doesn't necessarily follow that the sun will.
So Jefferson, do you have an answer to my question?
So it seems
do you have
like
a response to my statement?
Again, at this point, you're kind of repeating a lot of claims. So let me repeat, and then.
Well, it doesn't feel like you have really a rebuttal. I mean, I've just been making the same claim. I'm waiting to hear.
Hang on.
If you ever,
if
you're just going to accept what I'm saying.
Stop.
That's what I'm
please.
saying. It's
knock it off. I'm going to go on. I'm going to go on for a minute. All right, you're going to give me about a minute. So
hey, Robin, how sweaty are you right now? By the way,
I'm just waiting to hear something substantive for once.
That's an interesting question that I would also like an answer to. So
this isn't really hard, actually. It's not. This is not hard. Showing irrational.
Well, it is hard when
I mean, it does make it harder when somebody's being completely and utterly evasive, but it's not something I haven't dealt with before. So, do you have a rational
I asked
Do you have a
you for
rebuttal to what I'm
answers to
saying?
clarifying questions, and you refused to give them, and you're accusing me of
No,
being
I
evasive.
gave enough clarification, and you're trying to play this game because you don't want to. You want to escape the implications of what's happening here.
No,
So
I don't.
you don't need clarification
Hang
because
on.
you've
No.
done this.
Actually,
You've done this. You're pretending like you've just now walked into this stage. New. You've never had these kind of conversations before. I'm not falling for your game here. I'm not going to play your game. You know what I'm asking you. You know what I mean. You know the questions I'm asking you. You've been accustomed to these questions. So why don't you just answer them rationally instead of evading and dodging?
I've attempted to before, and I attempted to before in the past.
Okay,
but
so then you accept that you're being
in,
irrational then.
No, I don't.
Okay, then what's your
Why are you
rebuttal to what I'm
volunteering
saying?
that?
I haven't heard a rebuttal to what I'm saying.
Well,
So what's your rebuttal to me saying that you're being irrational in my analysis?
Are you going to let me answer on my own show?
I'm gonna make sure you know what you're answering.
Are you going to let me answer on my own
Yes, I will.
show?
Yes, I will. I just want to make sure that you understand what you're responding to. Okay.
What am I
talking about? When we're talking about the God position, we're not talking about some sort of a contingency that it has a 50-50 chance or a non-zero basically on both sides of it, might existing, might not existing. It's either going to necessarily exist or necessarily not exist. Okay, that's what we're talking about when it comes to metaphysical frameworks, where there's some sort of a necessity or a foundation to reality. Now, I've just posited one. I've called it God because it's a mind, and you don't have a necessary falsifier for it. So you're arbitrarily deciding that you wanted to reject the God position without any actual falsifier that's going to negate that this being exists. That's irrational.
Okay, so let me.
You know what's funny about this, Jefferson, is that he actually thinks that the God of Christianity institutes and upholds all possibility and impossibility. And so God is not contingent on anything. But if he institutes all possibility and impossibility, what about the possibility that he exists? Who's upholding that?
Yeah, that was a boneheaded question. So Jefferson, do you have an answer to what I just said? Or do you have a rebuttal to what he just said?
I was actually going to go on for a little bit, yeah. So when this initially started, and do not interrupt, when this started out, you asked the basic question, why is it that there is no God? And then when I pressed you for details on that, you were slow to talk about that, but you wanted to talk about an ultimate mind that is timeless and transcendent. All right. So we've got something poorly defined, an entity of a sort. Now you've laid it out and you've expanded the boundaries of this. It is the foundation for all metaphysics. It sounds like it's the grounding for all rational thought, the origin of everything in reality, and the sustenance of all those things in reality.
Did I not say that in the beginning when I said it was ultimate? Was that not clear? I mean, have you never had this conversation before? Why are you playing dumb like you've never heard this before?
I want to make sure
you know what ultimate means. You know what it means, and I explained it in this conversation numerous times.
Ultimate can be used as new. Are you going to?
I defined it.
I need you to be patient.
I defined ultimate already. I've defined it multiple times. I said that everything, literally. If you don't know what everything means, that's not my problem.
I'm
but
attempting
everything
to steel
depends on it. Okay.
I'm attempting to steal man.
No, you're also representing it as me being unclear in the beginning when I've defined my terms originally. And it's not like you're new to these conversations either. If you were new to these conversations, I would be a little bit more understanding, but I'm not going to play the game of you pretending like you don't understand what's going on.
You're not going to play the game, and yet here you are.
No, so I'm not going to play the game of you pretending like you're not understanding. I'm calling it out right now. That's not. I already
look.
Understand
I'll tell you this right now.
You understand fully what's going on.
Hang on. No, you're not gonna volunteer me how my brain works. I've been listening to guys like you.
So do you have do you accept or do you have a rebuttal to my statement?
I'm trying to present an opinion, and last time I checked, this is my show, so I'm going to actually finish saying this.
This is embarrassing for you. Then I'm sorry. You don't have a rational.
I don't care if you think it's embarrassing. I don't care.
Of course you don't.
You think that it's embarrassing.
Of course you don't.
This is my issue. So for years, I've been listening to arguments like this from lots of different presuppers, and many of them will try to tell people that you know what I mean when I say word A, B, or C. And then oftentimes in the course of the same exact conversation, someone will end up saying something about a term like foundational or ultimate or transcendent or timeless, eternal, whatever.
Okay,
Pick
did
a
I not
word.
did I not tell you what ultimate meant at the beginning of the conversation? Did we
No,
not
you
establish
did.
that? Grant?
No,
Okay,
you
then
just said
that's a lie.
no. You
That's a lie.
just said ultimate mind at
That's
first.
a lie. No, okay. Then I
You
said,
did not.
and I also,
You did
and I
not.
also said no.
You did not break
no,
it
I
down.
did. Okay, literally within the 30 seconds of me saying ultimate, I had described what ultimate meant.
I think he said
Right.
he at least
said
at the
all
very
things-
least
I said
he
all things
defined
that all things-
fundamental, and
I
he
said
said
that all things
ultimate sense.
I said that all things derive and depend upon. I said that within the first 30 seconds of me saying ultimate.
You said
I know
that
I
you've
did.
been slowly. Yeah, you've been. I agree. You've been slowly kind of unpacking.
Okay, so then
the
don't
concept
pretend
that
like you don't understand these definitions. I didn't say it like I know what you know what I mean. I defined the term ultimate. Okay, and then for the sake of me asking you how do you defend God, we had this conversation literally last week, and you tried to present an argument back
It
then.
wasn't last week.
And I
I
made
was
it clear.
sick last week.
Well, it was a while
I
ago.
haven't been- I haven't been on
Whatever time
for a
it
few
was,
weeks.
whatever time it was 2 weeks ago probably that I asked you, and you tried to present an argument. So you know what I was asking then. You know what I'm asking
No,
now.
I wasn't trying to present an argument. I was trying to give you my
Well,
reason.
I told you
demanded
to
an
present an argument. I told you.
Right.
I told you to present an
now
argument.
you're getting it right. You're exactly right. You demanded an argument, and I
Yes,
told you I was
and
there
that's the
to-
same thing I'm doing now. So let's be clear. We've established now that you don't have one. You don't have a falsifier, correct?
I don't have a falsifying argument against the existence of the God you're
Good.
talking about.
Then your denial of God is arbitrary and
No, it's not.
irrational.
I
Yes, it is.
I didn't make that as a
because God is in
statement.
the
That was a
category of that which
clarifying
either necessarily does exist or necessarily does not exist. So how did you rule out God if you don't have a falsifier for him? How did you rule him out?
How did you
Is that
rule out
arbitrary? Or
do
not?
you have a falsifier for ruling out unicorns, Santa Claus?
So this is the typical
Other
evasion.
things that you
This
would
is the
rule out
typical evasion that we
inductively?
get. This is the typical evasion that we get from atheists.
No.
Why don't you just
Hang
answer my
on.
question? We're not talking about unicorn.
Yeah, I'm trying to answer your question, but you need to let me actually get a before you accuse this of
No, you
being
can answer
some
the
kind
question
of, stop it.
instead of
Before
asking
you
me
accuse it
questions.
of being a cliche, stop doing that. Let me answer my question on my show. If there you can't falsify a concept as broad as the one that you're talking about. The fact that you're shifting the burden onto non-believers as if your position is the rational one just from the jump, because of some kind of hacky connection to an ontological argument. Well, I can't imagine anything better than this, therefore it must be true. This being therefore exists. Ha, atheist.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Tell me how it's fake.
That's such a poor representation of what's going on.
No, I'm talking about the motivations kind of behind
baffled. It. No, I'm baffled. I'm baffled that you're giving such a poor.
I wasn't done explaining my position yet.
Well, I'd like to stop you because you're humiliating yourself.
Why don't you just explain?
Why don't you just explain?
Stop it. You need to be less.
Why don't you just explain to us why you're being irrational and arbitrary? Why don't you explain that to us?
How would I explain it?
Well, I don't know. Are you accepting?
Good
First, we need to understand.
You and I've agreed on a question.
First, we need to understand. Do you understand that you're being irrational before we understand the motives behind it?
No, I do not believe that I'm being irrational.
Or you don't believe you're being arbitrary?
I believe I'm being. I understand that you're accusing me of
irrationality. So then you must have a falsifier for God, because God either necessarily exists. There's no, because you're trying to again approach this probabilistically as though that is a relevant critique or analysis of the God position when it's not.
That's not probabilistic, but
you did. You said that it's distinguishable, and that I'm going to approach it, because the same way that it doesn't exist, because it's most likely the case it's 50-50. You literally said it's a 50-50 chance. It's just as likely of it existing as it not existing. That's literally what you just said.
Definitionally is a concept. That's not probabilistic. I'm just talking about the way it was defined.
That's what everyone here understood you to mean. Okay, that you said it was
as likely. Tom, is that what you thought I meant?
You told me that it's just as likely for it to exist as for it not to exist. That's what you told me. That's what I understood, at least. Okay, so
Tom,
I'll speak for myself. So look. That's what
JRobin was talking so fast.
That's what I understood you to say. Okay, so if that's not what you're saying, if that's not what you're saying,
are you a little baked right now?
If that's not what you're saying, if that's not what you're saying,
I've got JRobin fatigue.
If that's not what you're saying, I'd love to hear your falsifier, because again, we're talking about God as that which is necessary, the necessary metaphysical precondition. So do you have a falsifier that you're now able to give me? Because that's going to be required if you're not being arbitrary.
Right, but a necessary precondition, that'd be just the same thing as saying a metaphysic, right?
Yeah, God is in the definition. God is in the category of a metaphysical framework, or like God constitutes the creator-creature distinction, or the creator-creation distinction. Okay, now you've chosen to deny that position. I want to know, if you're not being arbitrary, you should have a falsifier for it, because God either necessarily exists or necessarily does not exist. And he does not coexist, by the way. By definition, he would not coexist with another metaphysical framework that is not himself. So, do you have a falsifier for God?
In what sense?
You don't know what it means to be a falsifier?
No, I'm wondering what you're looking for. I'm wondering if
you know what I'm looking for, Jefferson. I already told you I'm not going to play this game. Do you have a falsifier for God? Whatever you give, that needs to be therefore God does not exist.
Okay. Well, I guess it would depend on you. Do you believe that God is all good?
I'm asking you the question to be defended.
Right, and I'm trying to find out. I don't know if this is a falsifier for you.
I mean, he's only given like 2 properties, right? It's a mind and it's ultimate. I mean, I guess that's all you have to
that's
work.
all you need to. That's all that's necessary here, because you are a global atheist, and we're talking about any conception of God. So even if I told you that I believe in a benevolent God, a morally perfect God,
that's not what you told PineCreek.
I mean,
I'm telling you. Listen. If you were listening, you would have heard me what I just said. I said, even if I had told you that, it wouldn't matter, because you're a global atheist. So you'd have to still reject the notions of God that are not malevolent, because you believe that they don't exist. So me answering that question is irrelevant. All you need to know is the basic general definition to go off of, which is that an ultimate mind.
Yeah, okay? So Jefferson, since he only got like 2 properties, like the only way that you can show that this necessarily is not possible is to find a contradiction between the only 2 properties that you've been given.
So that it's an ultimate mind, and that it's timeless, and that it's transcendent.
It's ultimate, comma, and a mind.
Yeah, but at that definition, I don't know what you're talking about. So
property 1 is ultimate, property 2 is a mind. I don't see a contradiction.
I told you what ultimate means. So thank you, Tom Rabbitt's realizing that this is really quickly going downhill for you.
Realizing?
Yeah. Okay.
Going downhill.
So you're spiraling now out of control, because you don't have a rational position.
I like how he provides commentary for his own performance.
Yeah, it's
really cool.
Look, you don't have a rational defense of your position. It's good. So look, I'm just going to ask you.
What does it mean by rational?
I won't inject my own thing into it. Do you have a falsifier for this being? Because you're saying you're not being irrational, so I have to keep asking this question. You're not being arbitrary, so apparently you do have a falsifier. So do you have a falsifier that you're willing to present right now?
Yeah, but I was wondering. I don't know.
Good, give it.
Actually... Okay, so one of the necessary properties for this being, right, is that it is all good, or perfectly moral in some.
No, he only gave you 2 properties.
No, that's not what I told you. I didn't tell you that God was all good. I said that for the.
Remember, Jefferson, the only 2 properties you have to find a contradiction, according to JRobin's God, right, is property 1, it's a mind. Property 2, it's ultimate. That's all you. If you're going to stick with like this is impossible, there's a contradiction here. That's all the properties that JRobin is presenting. This particular concept, you only get 2 properties. I personally don't see a contradiction with those 2 properties, and I don't really. Who cares So what?
Yeah, I would go right back, but I mean that seems to be where he's frustrated. Though that's where I would just reject the premise.
I'm not frustrated at all. Actually, this is actually good to realize that you're coming to the conclusion that you're being arbitrary and irrational. Why would I be frustrated with that?
Well, I don't know why you would or wouldn't.
No, I'm not frustrated at all.
You kept rejecting.
This is actually very good.
You kept rejecting my answers.
It's not that you're being arbitrary.
Well, I mean, if you're sticking to only those 2 properties in terms of just the mind and that it being ultimate, like I said before, if someone were to just ask me, like I think kind of how you got in this with PineCreek, you got an immaterial mind that is somehow ultimate, but is also spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. Okay, I don't know that those properties, as stated in that set, create some kind of necessary contradiction. However, I also don't see how those properties actually really define anything worth defining. It's a premise that I can just kind of reject out of hand.
Arbitrarily reject out of hand, you mean?
unless you can present an argument as to why that collection of properties is necessary.
I don't need to present anything. You're the one that's coming to me with the claim that needs to be defended, and we've now established that you don't have a defense to your position. So it's arbitrary and irrational. So what I'm going to tell you is that this is par for the course with all the atheists. That this is exactly what the Book of Romans says. That all atheists, people who choose to deny, really anyone who chooses to deny God is choosing to do so out of their own autonomy, out of the will to rebel, and to reject God's revelation. And I'd urge you to read the Bible and to turn from your rebellion.
I have read the Bible.
Well, then I'd urge you to turn from the rebellion if you understand what you read. If you read it, good. Well, then I would urge you to turn from the rebellion. That's what I'd urge you to do.
Yeah, but that is your proprietary definition of God, so almost no one else uses that. So I mean,
JRobin,
no, this is it. So Tom, again, maybe you're not understanding. I'm not coming here to talk about what I believe here, because if I was, I would be talking about.
Yeah, you made that clear.
I'm coming here to ask him about his belief, right? Okay, so I can come to him with any definition.
Oh, wait. You're asking. Oh, you want to know about his belief, but you're forcing him to use your definition.
Why are you over talking? If no, because he believes that this being doesn't exist. So it's his belief.
Right, yes. As posited by you.
So I'm asking.
No, but you're calling it God.
I don't understand why that's so hard.
It doesn't matter. Okay, what I'm coming to you with, if your belief is going to be either affirmative or the negation, I'm going to address your belief either way. So your belief is that it doesn't exist. So I came here to see if you were being rational, if you're being consistent, and it seems like you're being arbitrary and irrational. So I did what I came here to do. So now for the second time in a row, we've seen that.
Yeah, but when he answers the question, and he says something like, "I don't believe any gods," he didn't say I don't believe in any God. He didn't say that. He said I believe that this being does not exist. And when we probe deeper, we realize that that's an arbitrary and irrational conclusion to draw to. So thank you very much, Jefferson, for yeah, but he's not using your definition of God. That's evidenced by him. He was just talking about it.
No, he was because I asked him to respond to it, and he did use it.
No, so I was following the concept. I mean, if the concept of God is the one that he wants to talk about, the problem that I would have though is like. Not because he got into his sermon, right? So like, okay, so I've read the Bible and I don't think that the God that you're talking about exists, but I am inclined to think that if Jesus, right, given his teachings, if there was something supernatural about him and there was somehow some kind of retribution required to reconcile mankind with the supernatural, with the sublime God, whatever you want to call it, and Jesus provided for that. If I reach the conclusion, right, based on my reading and my understanding of the Bible, that Jesus did provide that and through his faith reconciled his creation with himself, then everybody's saved. Would you accept me as a brother of Christ?
I didn't catch the last part of what you said. Can you repeat that last part?
If the conclusion that I reached reading the New Testament was that Jesus, whether I'm totally convinced in the properties of the God that you're laying out or not, whether it's ultimate or any of that other kind of stuff, whatever. Well, let's say that I'm inclined to think that Jesus might have something supernatural going on, given the stories about him. And let's say that I believe that he did die believing that mankind needed to be reconciled with the sublime, with the creator, with nature, with whatever you want to go, with God. And through Jesus's faithfulness and his sacrifice and his resurrection, he provides for that. And so I reached the conclusion that, okay, yeah, I'm inclined to think that that's possible. And if it's possible, I think that absolutely everyone is saved. Would you be inclined to accept me as a brother in Christ?
No, because, well, what it takes to be a Christian is to have faith in Jesus Christ. If you're trying to appeal to universalism, that would be heresy. That's false.
I don't think that you have to have faith in Jesus Christ. I think that you have to understand that Jesus had faith in us.
So then the answer would be no to your question.
Okay, then you have the answer to mine then. I mean, if I read the Bible and I reach those conclusions, I did what you said. I've read the Bible many times. I've studied it. And the closest that I can get to it is to believe in God, or at least believe in Jesus as a possible hypothetical, right? It might be the case that he was either a prophet or maybe even God incarnate, right? But I don't believe it balls to bones. But I also think that if that thing sacrificed itself for the sins of all mankind, that it probably, if it could die for the sins of one person, and then it follows that being in its might, it could die for the sins of every person, regardless of whether or not they ask for it. I think that when you Christians run around telling each other that you have to have faith in Jesus, you're making the religion about yourself and less about Jesus.
Well, if you go by off of what Jesus actually said, he said you need to believe in him.
But that's maybe not what Jesus said, right? Those stories were written by people many years after his teachings were done.
No, it was written by, yes, but I mean, for one, it seems like you're going to be self-refuting, because where did you get the idea of Jesus anyways? And then anything you're appealing to is just going to be your own imagination, because that's what you're talking about isn't written anywhere aside from maybe one of the apocrypha, which I don't even believe the apocrypha teach that anyway. I could be wrong.
I'm just kind of reading between the lines between what's
but that's not what anything. That's not what anything in the Bible says at all. So
does the Bible say anything? Do you believe that the Bible is a consistent narrative from Genesis to Revelation?
Yes.
Okay, then we can stop talking, because you don't know how to read the Bible.
Okay, well, if you want to go through an in-depth study about it, then we can. But I don't think look,
you'd agree with
bottom line. I came here to do it. I did what I came here to do, and I appreciate you for your time. And
you didn't do it.
No, I didn't. You admitted that your position is arbitrary. So
I did not.
That's all. So your position is not arbitrary.
It isn't.
So then you do have a falsifier for God.
Again, I think that you're blowing that up a bit too much.
No, I'll explain. So look, maybe you don't understand why I'm saying.
No, I'd rather you not explain it to me. It sounded like you were ready to go.
If you don't have a falsifier position, then your position is arberary. Okay, because God either necessarily. I'll explain it to you. I'll explain it to you.
What about something unfalsifiable? Remember the question that Tom asked you about the sun?
Yeah, but
did you have an answer?
That has nothing. So look. This is the thing. The fact that I don't answer Tom's question doesn't mean he asked a good question. It just means I'm ignoring his question because I'm not talking about that.
I'm curious about the response.
And 50 to 90% of the time, okay, he's asking.
Hang on, I'm going to interrupt you right there, because you've been interrupting me a shitload. Tom Rabbittt is also a guest on my channel, right? So if I'm interested in the question that he asked, regardless of whether or not it's good or not, I was curious to hear what your response to his question was. Now, you might think it's just crap or whatever, but that hasn't changed the fact that most of the times we ask you questions, you dodge.
No, most time you ask me questions is when I've asked a question first and there hasn't been an answer provided and we haven't gotten resolution.
Yeah, all we've done is answer questions.
No, I've been answering questions for most of this time. Really, except you're right. I will concede that I did ask a lot of clarifying questions.
You've dodged this last question we were asking right now. To case in point, right?
We already went over the falsification thing.
How many questions have you answered, JRobin?
I just answered a slew of questions just now. Okay, so
slew.
Yes.
That's true about his positions on the Bible, which are very vanilla.
You can ask other questions too, but look, the bottom line is I want.
Yeah, how about what's the contradiction in atheism?
I want to understand how. Well, first I want to make sure you understand what I mean when I talk about arbitrariness, because maybe that's where the disconnect is. The reason I'm saying your position is arbitrary, if you can't provide a falsifier, it's because of what we're talking about when it comes to metaphysical frameworks.
Right.
What one framework, any framework that's metaphysical, when it comes to like a foundation or ultimate, it's either going to necessarily be the case or not, and it's not going to be able to coexist by virtue of the law of excluded or law of non-contradiction with a negation of the metaphysical framework that it is. It's not going to be able to coexist. So when you hold that this framework is not true, when you hold to the negation of the framework, you're going to need to provide a rationale for why it's false. And that rationale is going to need to be a falsifier, because it either necessarily is or necessarily is not. Okay? So telling me a probabilistic, kind of approach to it, giving me that kind of approach, it's not going to be adequate here. And so
a probabilistic approach is abduction. That's reasonable. That's logical.
So I just explained to you why that would not be adequate here, because what we give as a falsifier for the metaphysic will have to be either there's two positions here. It's either that it necessarily is or that it necessarily is not. There's no middle ground
That's all
here.
just gibberish to me.
That's not okay. Well, then if you don't understand, then I don't have to explain this to you.
That actually kind of seems a little bit like special pleading.
No, it's not. This is not just true for my position. This is true for Islam. This is true for any other foundational metaphysical position. Either that position, because it's going to ground even things like the laws of logic, things like facts, what the facts are, connectivity between the facts, everything imaginable is going to be grounded by this ultimate metaphysical framework. So it literally is going to either exist necessarily or necessarily not exist or necessarily not be true. Okay, it's just by virtue of what it is. Okay, and so when I posit here to a potential framework to you, and you cannot falsify it, then you don't have you're being arbitrary in your reasoning. You haven't ruled it out, but you still hold that it doesn't exist.
It sounds like you might be too. So so everything that exists necessarily?
No, that's not what I said. I said that the metaphysical framework is necessarily the case.
Okay, so everything that is contingent upon that framework does not exist necessarily? Could it exist?
There are contingent. I don't understand your question. There are contingent facts and there are necessary facts. Okay. Now when we're talking about the case of the metaphysical framework, it's either going to necessarily be the case or necessarily not be the case.
Oh, Enlighten's in my
by
chat.
virtue of what it is.
Enlighten, get in here, man.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, I mean, if you're, I am starting.
J Mike, how are you?
Is J Mike in here?
Enlightenist? Is that what you mean?
Oh, I don't think they're in my chat. They might be in yours.
Oh yeah, they're in my chat.
Yeah. So.
Anyways,
no.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, look, if that was it, if that was the, if there's no other thing.
No, I just
talk about then.
I like, again, I had told you before, I don't see how you're getting to this whole thing. Well, if I don't have a kind of logically deductive falsification for the God that you're positing, then my lack of belief in it or my reasons for believing that it doesn't exist, it therefore follows that they are arbitrary and irrational. I don't get how you're getting there.
Because I explained this now 5 times. I explained this now 5 times that whatever position that you're talking about, you're going to be addressing it as though it either necessarily does or necessarily does not exist. Okay. And so if you're going to approach it that it necessarily exists, you're going to need to give a rationale for that. If you're going to approach it that it necessarily does not exist, you're going to have to give a rationale for that as well. Now, you haven't given a falsifier to entail the necessary non-existence of this metaphysical framework or the necessary non-actuality, whatever you want to call it, of this metaphysical framework. So then you're holding to this position. Your acceptance of this position is arbitrary by definition. There's nothing really more for me to break this down into smaller parts of it.
Right, but the being that you posited at the beginning, you're defining it as being necessary, but you can't present any kind of connection that shows that necessity.
No, I'm not defining merely, I'm not special pleading for this one being. I'm saying that anything that is posited as a metaphysical framework, if I say that the rock on the side of the road is ultimate, then you're either going to, you're either going to hold that it does exist, or you're going to hold that it doesn't exist. And
you hold that it does.
Not as the ultimate, no. So there's no, even so anything you posit as that, you can't be neutral towards, for one.
But I'm not the one positing the frame. You're positing the framework and then not providing.
That's not the point I'm making.
But you're not providing the necessary justification for how it is the case that thing necessarily exists. You're just telling me that it does, and then demanding me to present a falsification for why. So
this whole time I never made a claim that it does.
You don't believe that God exists.
I do, but I never made the claim to you that it does. You need to respond on your own ground.
Why would I? No, but I mean, at that point, then you're just presenting a premise that I can just wave away offhand.
I could present people anything I want to. I could be an atheist asking you the same question. It doesn't
but
change.
Hang on. If I just present you with some abstract concept, but don't ground it to an argument to demonstrate how it exists in the real world or interacts with reality.
As long as it's not a logical contradiction, I can respond to it. I could respond to it as long as it's not some sort of a lot. If you're not defining a square, a triangle, square, circle, or anything like logical contradiction, then you should be able to address it. And I'm able to do that. I don't have to leave an argument to see that it actually does exist. I'm not asking you to accept that it exists. I'm asking you to defend its non-existence, which is your position.
Right, but if I were to conjure up a concept of let's say, cotton candy seahorses or something like that, and then
Okay.
told you this is a concept of a thing out there. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to then, and then I just assume, okay, one of the things about these cotton candy seahorses, for lack of a better collection of words, is that they have something to do with the underpinning of the metaphysical framework of all of reality. Now, I need you to provide me a falsification for why those things can't exist.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah. So
okay, how would you do it?
Yeah. So for one, it doesn't provide. It just goes back to the whole transcendental reasoning again. That we're looking at the necessary preconditions that God has for intelligibility.
No,
now,
the cotton candy seahorses.
No, I'm saying my position first, and then can compare that to the cotton candy seahorse. Now, if that being that you're talking about doesn't
so
have
you
those
are
properties,
positing that the God exists.
No, I'm comparing it to
with
what
your
is
position that
yes,
with
I
your
am.
position that a God exists, but you just told me that you weren't positing that. Now
No,
you're changing that.
Listen, I said I didn't posit that you in this discussion. I never made the claim to you that it existed.
But in order to
that's not
falsify,
relevant, because it's not relevant. Let me finish. Because that's not relevant to your defense of your position. I don't need to tell you my position. What if you defend yours?
But there's nothing for me to defend if you haven't presented anything other than just a definition.
I can present you a definition without claiming it exists. Did you not just present me a definition without claiming it exists? The cotton candy seahorse. Good. So I can do the exact same thing to you.
Which is what I did to you.
But the point is, I didn't ask you.
Are you being arbitrary in your rejection of my concept?
Not at all. I was in the middle of actually.
Okay, then why was I?
It didn't exist. Because you don't have a falsifier for its existence.
Yo, JRobin, send Enlighten the link, please.
Okay, hold on one second.
Or actually, I should ask Jefferson. Do you mind?
I mean, you can. I do need to wrap this up because I am getting kind of tired.
Yeah, I'll pop.
Well, I mean, look. We got to give Enlighten some airtime, right? Just a little bit, please.
No, Tom Rabbit's just going to use this again. Look, I came up here. I already know he's going to record it. So look, I mean, if Enlighten wants to be recorded,
it's like literally streamed on 2 different YouTube channels simultaneously.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, what a big brain on you that I got recorded, JRobin.
I mean, honestly, you're being opportunistic as a
super sleuth. Figure it out. It's recorded, man. Good job.
Wait, Tom, you're recording this?
So, anyways,
sorry.
No, I'm not stating anything that I think is controversial or not obvious. It's obvious that it's happening. That's what I'm telling you. I'm saying it with such confidence that I know it's obvious, obviously. Anyways, that's it. That's all I have to say. So, thanks.
Okay, I didn't think.
Cool, man.
Yeah, we didn't get anywhere. So,
just in closing, what's the contradiction within atheism?
It doesn't provide the necessary preconditions for intelligibility.
That's not a contradiction.
Oh no! I said the contradiction, JRobin.
Yes, it does. That's the contradiction. So it's transcendental reasoning, right? So it would be either you could say it's either premise one or typically transcendental reasoning would have.
To appeal to transcendental reasoning would be an external critique, but a contradiction would be only shown by an internal critique. So you're already messing up.
Tom Rabbittt, you got to listen. I'll tell you.
No, you got to listen.
So, for example, let's say we'll give an example of a transcendental argument here. Let's say something like flour is required for cake. A cake exists. That's premise 2. Conclusion: there's flour. Right? And so a contradiction would be to say that if somebody wants to posit a scenario, state of affairs, where there is not flour, but there's a cake, and cake still exists, and they accept the premises of the original argument, then that would be a contradiction.
Did you really think that was going to work on me?
What?
No, that's a contradiction. Now,
no, it's not a contradiction because under
yes,
the atheist, I'll tell you exactly why it's not a contradiction, and I'll explain it to like the 200 plus people that are listening. What JRobin just provided was a transcendental argument, which is under the God hypothesis, right? Now, under the atheism worldview, there is no God. So to appeal to a God,
relevant. To say that you don't hold to God existence is irrelevant. If the argument holds, then the argument holds. Now, the only issue.
Stop on interrupting him. Let him finish.
So, thank you very much. So, for him to do that is an explicit external critique, and when you're showing a contradiction, even Van Til says that it must be done to a worldview on its own terms, and there's nothing about atheism where there's a God posited.
Yeah, whether or not there's a God posited is irrelevant. if the first argument I gave to you stands, which is the most controversial part of it, then somebody who's an atheist would be contradicting the first argument, which would be the contradiction. What you'd have to do at that point is
That's an
give a
external
contradiction,
critique, dude.
And what you'd have to do
Yeah.
at that point, let me finish. What you'd have to do at that point is to say, okay, then God does not provide the necessary preconditions.
See, I can do this too. So how is it?
Worldview that doesn't do it. Now, Thomas tried to do this multiple times in many different flavors, and it's failed multiple times. Okay.
So how is it that not God does not exist?
How is it that not God exists?
Uh-huh.
How is it that not
It
God
doesn't.
does not exist?
It doesn't exist. Not God does not exist.
Right, but you haven't shown that via contradiction.
Yeah, so
which is what you which is what you demanded. You demanded of Jefferson Spatchcock. Hold on a second, mute him for a second, please.
Do you not want me to explain
You demanded that of Jefferson Spatchcock, and me being objective, right? I even pointed out to Jefferson Spatchcock, in order to show a contradiction, you need to do it on its own terms, which was the only two properties that you provided, right? It's got to be within your framework that you provide. Now, when it comes around to atheism, you need to provide, you need to find a contradiction within atheism. And under the atheism hypothesis, there is no God. So positing a God is not going to show a contradiction with atheism.
No, then what you do is you do the same logical syllogism, present it, then we'll cash them out on both side by side. And it just happens to be the case that atheism is arbitrary and irrational, like we just demonstrated here. Just happens to be the case, right?
I don't think that's something should be done, JRobin.
No, that's exactly how it should be done. That's exactly
you want
how
to
it
use
is
a
done.
syllogism.
That's perfectly valid. That's perfectly valid.
You want to use a syllogism which concludes with God to falsify and show an internal contradiction in the hypothesis there is no God?
If the syllogism is valid and sound, then yes.
How would you prove that it was sound? You'd have to prove every premise was true.
Well, there's only two premises, but yeah, it does go into multiple sub-premises when it comes to the extended properties of God.
And you can substantiate that they are.
Yes, I do that all the time. Yes.
How?
So well, we talk about, for example, that God is ultimate.
I mean, you're
that's number one thing that you're kind
of obliging him with going down this rabbit trail.
I didn't realize he was going to get that.
Well, I'm ready to do. I mean, honestly, people say that I don't present the arguments. I do all the time.
No, you didn't. You didn't present an argument that
I was literally just about to do it now, and now that I'm about to do it, you guys are telling me no. It's fine, okay, but
you have one that's an internal critique.
Enlightened. I just told your friend Jay. I just told Jay. He's Enlightened says in the chat. Why can't you send me the link, Tom? You scared. I told your friend to send it, and then I went out of my way to ask if it was okay if he can come in. I mean, come on, grow up, Enlightened. But look, you didn't show a contradiction with atheism.
I did actually. So no, I did. If the argument I gave, the first argument I gave is sound, then yeah, it would be a contradiction. The only issue is that you don't think it's sound. So I just have to present this as sound.
No. Look,
once I do
that, I don't know what you're not understanding about
this.
Is really clear.
That's
an external critique.
It wouldn't be an external critique. Because the person in the worldview would accept that too. If it's a sound argument, and we both accept logical, inference and syllogisms, then it would be an internal critique even on their grounds too. So the issue is
that doesn't mean it has to be if it's an external critique, you can but if it's an external critique, you're not demonstrating the internal contradiction you said you could.
Correct.
You're reaching outside because if the argument is sound, listen. If the argument is sound, right, then it means that the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises, right? Okay.
In an external critique, how is that still effective?
Listen, if it's logically necessary, then it would follow from the premises, whether or not the person's an atheist, right? Okay. So if they accept it, which of course they wouldn't, but if I
didn't ask you if you could give an argument, I asked you what's the contradiction.
So I'm explaining it to you because this is how it would work. This is how even arguments aside from God work when it comes to contradiction. There's something that is stated to be true, and a lot of times there might be a deductive path or a chain of justification for it, and the person accepts that. Both people accept that. And then we move on from there. Now, in this case, we don't both accept that. So I have to show why it's sound. I have to demonstrate its soundness. Once I do that and they accept that, now if they don't accept it, then they're gonna have to give a rebuttal to that. They're gonna have to give a counter argument.
JRobin, first of all,
Yes, they would.
First of all, the only thing that you really have to get to is validity, right? Getting to soundness. in a
Well,
lot
it
of
would have to be
cases,
soundness too, because we're trying to falsify the atheist
again, I'm trying to throw you a little bit of a rope here before Tom goes after you again, but no,
Well, he's already done. He doesn't know it though.
Yeah, this is sad. And I don't really have the patience to break it down because this is going to.
Oh wait, I know what I'm supposed to say.
JRobin, it's really embarrassing. It's really. Yeah, you should be really embarrassed right now. Okay.
Tom, tell me how I humiliated myself again.
Oh, you already know. You already know how it happened.
No, I didn't ask you. I asked Tom. I wanted Tom to explain to me how I humiliate. Anyway, let's wrap it up.
But I think the link should be in the live stream. I'm looking here. It's in the live stream. Is the line not able to see it?
You put it in the live stream?
I didn't put it in the live stream. I see it pinned right here.
It's in. It's been pinned in my.
Well, then Enlighten is just inept. I'm sorry. I mean, like, what can we say? I mean,
yeah, I want to talk to a few other people that have been waiting.
So yeah, look. I understand that you're very furious at him for making all the atheists look bad. I understand that, but
you didn't make.
Is he talking to me?
No, I'm talking about Enlighten. I know that Enlighten is very furious. That
I love Enlighten. He's great.
Yeah. Okay. No, I can tell that he makes you very furious. I know. So.
Okay.
I want him to come in. We're literally waiting for him to come in, and we're like, we want to expect.
I'm not gonna wait anymore. Sorry, Tom, but I'm not gonna wait anymore. I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna bring in a few other people to talk to, and probably take this off stage, but take this off live because I can only stay up for a little while. I got work in the morning.
Well, JRobin, it's nice you stopping by.
Thanks for
you weren't able to show a contradiction with atheism.
Well,
maybe next time.
Maybe next time. I mean, look. Thanks for being shown to be completely and utterly arbitrary.
Oh wow! Look at all these people. Oh wow! JRobin's really gonna leave now. There's no way he's.
I've talked to like 50% of these people. Well, now it's getting smaller.
Does anybody? Hold on a second. If anyone was listening to him give the contradiction within atheism, did anybody hear his quote contradiction?
He didn't. I don't think he knows what a contradiction is. All he gave was like a conceptual argument, or what he.
Hold on a second. Okay, you wait in. Does any? I want
a contradiction.
No. Ask yourself, Josh. Anybody else? Just tell me whether or not you think he gave a contradiction.
I explained it already, Leah.
I don't know. Explain it again.
He never gave a contradiction though.
So let me just make sure. Let me just be clear. All of you guys are atheists, right? I mean, I think that's a relevant. I think that's in order thing to understand. Right.
I'm an atheist. Tom is an agnostic.
Right.
AY is an agnostic.
Right. If you listen to
I'm an atheist.
Everyone's here is an atheist.
Anybody hear me?
And they're all saying I didn't provide a contradiction.
I'm not a global anything.
Audio is not working.
Well, no, you're working.
Yeah, you didn't provide a contradiction.
Okay.
Your audio is working, Jay, but it's a little.
Does anybody disagree with me?
Has asked me to speak to JRobin before. Like, what is he saying that the contradiction is?
I don't know.
I said earlier.
He gave the transcendent. Okay, I'll give it to you.
It would violate the transcendental argument. So, for example, I gave an example with the cake earlier. So, if you were listening,
this is great. I can't believe this is happening.
Okay, if you were listening, you would have heard the contradiction already. So, I gave an analogy here.
That might be true for the record. I wasn't actually here listening the whole time, so
okay,
you might actually be right.
So let's say, for example, that if flour, let's say premise 1, flour is required to make a cake. Premise 2, a cake exists. And the conclusion is that there's flour, right? Now, if you accept that as true,
required to make a cake.
If that is a sound argument, okay? And somebody comes forward and says that I don't have flour. Flour does not exist, period, in the world. I have a cake, or so yeah. Oh no.
Oh my God! Seriously.
I don't have flour, and I have a cake, right? Then that would be a contradiction with
Yes, based on if it is the case that all cakes must be made with flour.
Of course,
maybe.
And so,
Is it okay if I
but the
respond?
point is that
Yeah.
if the argument is sound and if it logically follows, and that the person believes that the cake
If it's
exists
sound, it
without
logically
absent,
is valid and it's true. That's what sound is. Oh my God. You don't have to
I
say
know.
valid and
All right,
sound.
okay,
A sound argument
I know
is
Okay,
that.
okay,
I was
let's
true.
not
being
get stuck on that
redundant,
yet.
I was
He's
being
not going to be
redundant
here
now.
for very much longer. Don't.
Yeah, I want to ask this guy a thing or two. So like,
So I presented the
just
contradiction.
to yeah,
No, you
yeah, that's
didn't.
what I was
Okay.
trying to
Yes, I
understand.
did.
So
That was a contradiction.
Okay, 1 second. Yeah. So yeah, I did want to understand what the contradiction is. So just it sounded like you were giving like an inference that leads to a contradiction, but that's
So the contradiction would be premise 1 and not premise 1, essentially.
Okay, yeah, and what's that premise?
Premise 1 is that flour exists and not flour exists.
This is supposed
Okay,
to be.
so and this is a contradiction that's entailed on atheism, presumably.
Well, it would be the case that in the atheism that they don't have the preconditions for intelligibility. Like the cake is the pre. Like
What
the
does that
flour is
mean?
Oh, it's almost.
No,
Oh, you mean flour and cake are stand-ins for something else? Is it maybe?
I told you that
God?
it was. Like is that
Wait,
is that
so-
is that not
okay?
clear to anyone in the room here?
One second. I feel like we're going down like 5 lines. I just want to talk to this guy.
Okay, let's let ask yourself do this. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, or someone else can. Just if I want to talk to him, just let me talk for like a minute or two, and then
Go ahead. Yeah,
just
no,
cut me
go
off if
ahead.
you want. Yeah, okay. So, I want to understand, I guess, what the contradiction is. So you said it's whatever the proposition is in premise 1 that's true and not true. I'm still not sure what that proposition is. Is that
flour exists and that is flour is necessary for a cake?
Okay, and is what you're saying that on atheism that contradiction is entailed? Or
No. I was using that argument as an analogy as for the transcendental argument for God. I said that from the onset that I'm using that as an analogy, but to make it clear, this is to the God position, but this is just as an analogy to make everyone understand it clearly. Okay, if flour is necessary for a cake, and we have a cake, and the conclusion is that there's flour. Okay, now if we assume that there's a cake, somebody comes forward telling me that there's a cake and there's no flour there, then they're violating the first argument. If the first argument is sound, then they're violating the first argument. That would be a contradiction, because then they're saying that flour is not necessary for a cake, essentially, which would be a violation of the first premise of the argument.
Is this a contradiction that's supposed to be entailed if theism is false?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
the
so
worldview that's being presented does not have the necessary preconditions for intelligibility. Yes.
So if theism is false, then we get to this contradiction that flour is required to make a cake, and it's not the case that flour is required to make a cake?
Yeah, that would be the case if so. The point is that, of course, that's not true, but if you accept the first argument as sound, then you cannot hold that there is no flour, or that flour is not required to make a cake.
Yeah, let me repeat your view back to you so you tell me if I'm understanding you right. Just to be clear, like, you're saying you're trying to run some kind of reductio, right? You're going, if we accept some set of premises, we can derive a contradiction. Then we say, okay, well, one of the premises has to be a problem, right? It's like a reductio that you're trying to do. That's the idea, right?
Yes, this isn't very hard either. I don't know why this is such a controversial thing either.
Well, the idea of a reductio isn't really the problem. So, like, I understand the kind of thing that you want to do. You want to say that if we start from this proposition that theism is false, then we can derive this contradiction that flour is required to make a cake, and it's not the case that flour is required to make a cake. The contradiction is not acceptable, so we have to give up one of the premises, and presumably the premise that we're going to give up is the premise that theism is false, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want is the actual inference that goes from the proposition that theism is false to the contradiction that flour is required
if we
to
accept
make.
if the first thing is true, if the first argument is true,
I was just let me finish what I was saying. So I just want to be totally clear what I'm asking for. I'm happy to hear what you have to say. So so we need to go from a premise that is the proposition theism is false to a conclusion that's got the proposition flour is required to make a cake, and it's not the case that flour is required to make a cake. That's the deduction that I would want to see.
If the first argument is sound, then the second argument is false, or the second state of affairs cannot be the case. If the second state of affairs is actual,
then the first argument cannot be sound.
I'm just going to cut in because I'm not following. I'm just asking for some clarity here. So when you're referring to like the first argument, the second argument, the first state of affairs, the second state of affairs, I don't have all that in my head right now. What I have written down is premise 1, flour is required to make a cake, and premise 2, a cake exists.
The second part, the second argument or second state of affairs. So the first, that's the one you're talking about, the first one. The second one is where they say that the cake exists without the flour. Now, both of those cannot be true at the same time. Only one of them is true. And so whatever one we can demonstrate to be true would be the negation of the other state of affairs. Very simple.
But keep in mind that the premise that we need to start with isn't something like flour is required to make a cake. The premise that you think we can derive a contradiction from is theism is false. So what we need is the inference that moves from that proposition to the contradiction.
I don't know why you're not understanding what I'm telling you.
I think he is. I think you're not understanding what he's asking you because you don't actually know how to provide what it is.
Thank you for your input.
One sec. I don't want to hog it. So when someone else wants to like actually take over.
Look, I'm not here to be here all night. I already said I would have to leave like a long time ago, and I do really.
Okay, well, if you want to leave,
nobody's keeping you here.
I just know that Tom has asked me to speak to you once or twice, and I thought I just happened to see you're talking to him, so I was like, oh,
yeah, this is no. Ask yourself. I know for a fact because Ask Yourself and I have talked about this. He has been trying to get the contradiction from Darth entailed in atheism for what, years? Never has gotten an answer. JRobin says he's got it.
To be clear, with Darth, it's the contradiction that falls from agnosticism. It's even weirder claim.
Well, JRobin has that view
time.
too, but I think you should just continue going down this road trying to get the argument because he hasn't spelled out the argument that leads to that inference. And he says he doesn't know why you don't follow it, but you're writing everything down. So he's writing everything you're saying down, so you can just go ahead and present the inference, right? By the way, Ask Yourself, just so you know, he doesn't actually know when the material conditional is false. So him struggling to come up with an argument.
That's a lie.
Okay, so when is it false?
You mean if premise or scenario 1, scenario 2, or PQ?
When is the material conditional false?
If the second, if you're saying like A then B, if B is false, then it would be false.
If B is false?
What if A and B are both false? Like, okay,
if
so
A and B are false, that doesn't matter. That wouldn't change. That wouldn't change the truth of the material.
Well, if A and B are
anyways,
both,
look.
so,
do you have any more? Do you have any more?
I want to go. I want to go back
any
to
more?
Yeah.
Do you have any? You have another question? Make it short, please, because.
Well, it's not really another. It is the same line of reasoning, but I just want to say one or two things. So, like, first of all, I do appreciate what Josh is saying there. So he's obviously talking about propositional logic, right? And there's these there's the material conditional is an operator in propositional logic, and when he's asking when it's true, the idea is like it's true under certain.
No, he asked when it's false.
Okay, well, when it's true or when it's false, whichever question it might be, the answer to that is going to be you look at under what conditions is the material conditional true in terms of what are the truth values of the variables in the material conditional, right? So you can go if P is Q and true is Q, if P is true and Q is false, if P is false and Q is true, or if both are false. And he's pointing out that you don't obviously and I'm not saying this to rip on you, but you obviously don't understand this.
I just told you.
Well,
I just told you if you had A and B, then B.
When they're both, and when they're both false, is the material conditional true or false?
It would still be true.
Yeah, so it's false under that condition. But like I don't want to just rip on you for not like knowing logic. I'm
A
just
and B are false.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah, if you learn like I can show you if you want. I can screen share, but if you learn like propositional logic, it's actually true under those conditions. It's only false when you have.
I just told you it's true. I just said if only if B is false, then it'll be false.
I just want you guys to know everything you're saying is going so far over JRobin's head that it's taking out the Hubble Space Telescope.
Okay, I don't need anyone to chime in when I'm talking to him. If someone wants to take over, go for it. But I don't want to gang beat him. So with okay, it's possible I misheard you. But what truth value does the material conditional have when both the antecedent and
I already told you. You can go back to the recording. If that's the last thing.
But why not just say it again to help the discussion?
Well, here,
Because there's no more discussion to be had.
Oh, you don't. So then why are you still here? You said you wanted a
just talk to
discussion.
this guy for
Well,
a
because
second?
I don't want to just rudely leave like you would do.
Okay, yo, one second.
Leaving isn't rude.
Leo, safe
Well,
word,
while
Leo.
somebody's talking to
Safe
you,
word.
Can I communicate with this guy for a second? So, yeah. Now, it's possible I misheard you. I've learned not to trust my memory. I've smoked too much weed, but I thought that I heard you say that the material conditional is false in the condition where the antecedent and the consequent are false.
No, that's not what I said at all. I said it would be true.
Okay, I am kind of skeptical because I thought I heard the other way, but
Well, you can go back to the thing. I said it was true. But anyways,
if-
is that the
if- yeah, no,
last
if
thing you
I'm-
want to hear?
No,
Is that the last thing
I
you
haven't
have
even
for me?
started. Like,
Oh well, I'm not gonna look. If you're gonna go down the long line of
well,
this
it's
me,
the
so
same.
I'm not
It's the
gonna do
same.
that, so.
Well, one sec. Why? There's too much fucking tension in the air, dude. Like, just calm down. Let's just talk for a second. So, like, okay, now with the logic thing, it's possible I misheard you. If you actually did get the truth value right and I misheard, that's
Look,
fine.
I already told you
Can I
down 3
complete a
times.
sentence?
No, not if you're
come
gonna
on,
just say the same
let's-
thing 4 times.
JRobin,
I
if
will
you're
keep
done.
trying to get through my sentence. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be
J-
nice.
JRobin,
But so, well,
AY.
here, can I-
Okay, no,
Sorry.
he muted himself. I was just going to chat him. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Okay, so yeah, so with respect to the logic thing, if I misheard, that's fine. I thought that I heard you say that the material conditional is false when the antecedent and consequent are both false, and that's not
that's not
true.
what I
But
said.
it could. Can I please complete a fucking sentence, dude?
Well, you just
Now,
made a false assertion or assumption. But okay.
No, I
Look,
didn't.
okay, is
make
that
a
is this
fa- I
is
told- I
this
told-
is this
Can I
is that
complete
it?
a sentence?
Is that it?
No,
Is that all you want to know about material conditionals?
Dude,
Like,
okay,
JRobin,
this-
you're ramping
this
it back
is
up
pretty
again. If you just,
frustrating. Like,
yeah, if you
trying,
just
No,
gonna,
because
trying to
I
get
don't
through
wanna
my
waste
sentence
time here.
here. I'm trying
I
to
don't wanna
get.
waste time.
Well, can I complete what I'm saying, dude? Okay, so, and I am going to try to repeat the whole thing and actually get through the sentence. So when you cut me off, like, you're not doing anyone favors, because all that goes is I go, fuck, okay, now I have to restart again, right? So, okay, so what I was saying was I could be wrong about the logic thing. Maybe I misheard, maybe you misspoke, right? I don't know. Or maybe you didn't understand. I'm not sure which is, okay? But the impression I was under, I thought I heard you say that the material conditional is false when the antecedent and consequent are both false, and it's actually true under those conditions. So yeah, okay. And then just with and I'm fully aware maybe you didn't say that, okay, so whatever. Now with respect to the God thing, so yeah, you were not understanding why I didn't follow your inference. So yeah, I guess that all I could say is I don't understand which inference rules that you're using to get from that first proposition that God doesn't exist to the conclusion that flour is required to make a cake, and it's not the case that flour is required to make a cake. So if you could spell out that inference, that's what I'm hung up on.
Okay, so I'll tell you again. If we accept the first syllogism, which is that flour is
what?
required, I'll tell you, flour is required for a cake. There is a cake, therefore there is flour. Okay. Now, if we accept that as true, and if it's sound, okay, then somebody comes to you proposing a state of affairs. Of course, that can't actually be actual. If the argument is sound, then this would only be a hypothetical. Somebody comes to you proposing that there is just a cake that just sits there stand alone without flour, then we would reject that, because in such a scenario, then flour would not be required to make a cake when we've already established that it is the case that flour is required to make a cake. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so the problem that I'm having, I have like a kind of vague, intuitive sense of what you're saying, but I guess there's two.
If you don't understand what I said, I'm not going to go more too deep with it, because
So the first thing is was one of the premises in that argument that God doesn't exist.
No, I just told you that's an analogy.
Okay, so can I raise a criticism then? Right. So the whole thing that you have to do is start from the premise that God doesn't exist. That's what you're trying to derive the problem from, right? Then from that premise, via some sequence of valid inferences, reach the conclusion that flour is required to make the cake, and it's not the case that flour is required to make a cake. So if your argument to get to that conclusion didn't actually start from the proposition that God doesn't exist,
it's not starting with God doesn't exist. So the flour would be the God, what's required.
Okay,
the cake would be.
I thought that's. Can I say something about that then?
No, if you didn't understand, then I'm going to explain it to you.
Well,
the flour would be the God. That would be the precondition. That would be the precondition. The cake would be intelligibility, those kind of things, rationality, logic, etc. And then The conclusion would be therefore God. Okay. Now, if somebody comes, if we accept that as true, then if somebody says, I have the cake, I have the intelligibility, I have the knowledge, I have the etc. without God, then we can reject that as a possible or as an actual world. Very simple.
Okay.
So that's the analogy fleshed out for you.
Okay. So what I thought I heard at the start was you sign off when I said that you believe that there's a contradiction that's entailed if theism is false.
Yeah, if somebody presents the theism worldview, then yeah, that would be false, because by virtue of what we've shown to be true, which is that God is required for a metaphysics or required for intelligibility.
So let me make
I
sure
asked him for the
understand.
contradiction in atheism.
Yeah, well, okay, so there's also a further question there. Is this a contradiction on atheism or just on?
It's a contradiction. It's a contradiction. Atheism would be the not God position. So yes.
Without going. Okay, right. Yeah. So if we just construe, yeah, I would rather think of atheism like that and use the word agnosticism for the like middling position or whatever. But okay, so yeah, the inference that's being do you think that a contradiction is entailed if theism is false? Because that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, it would be a violation of the first premise of my argument.
Okay.
And if it's sound, then it would be
okay. And the contradiction that is entailed if theism is false is that flour is required to bake a cake, and it's not the case that flour is required to bake a cake, right?
Well, there's no if theism is false. I mean, it would just be, if you're going to posit that as a hypothetical, you compare it to what has been shown to be true, and there's a contradiction right there.
I thought that you said that there's going to be a contradiction if theism is false.
Yes, then we should be saying, again, if it's the case that what we have is true, the first argument that God is required for intelligibility, then trying to appeal to a hypothetical world where God is not there, you'd lead to a contradiction, yes.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to very succinctly kind of sum up what you're saying, right? So I understand the direction you're going, and then I have really the same critique, because I think that's what. Please don't come after. So, oh, maybe I heard someone else talk there. Sorry. Yeah. So to be clear, this is kind of like just a yes or no. You are saying that a contradiction is entailed if theism is false, right?
Yeah, there's a contradiction with the first scenario. Yes.
So yeah, and then do you have an argument that goes from the proposition that theism is false to that contradiction?
Yeah, the whole point is that you're positing atheism or non-theism with the belief that God is not required, but it's been established that God is required.
Okay, so basically so that's what I want. I want that inference that goes from the proposition that theism is false.
I just explained it to you. Look, I'm not going to do this
you explain.
Can I try to provide some clarification?
One second.
We're not going to do this carousel. We're going around and around.
We're getting some. Wait, 1 second. But
no, I don't really have time for this, honestly.
Well, wait, JRobin. What I don't accept, right, is when I try to get clarity on what you're saying, and I sit here, patiently going through your position with you. It feels to me like when I try to get the clarity, you don't want that to happen. So let's just
actually, I've done it.
Just let me be clear.
That would only be true if you asked me one time and then I just booted off the stage. And that's not what happened. I've explained it to you now 14 times.
No.
And
But you can't wait. You can't just say 1 second. You can't just say I've explained it to you and assume that that's adequate, right? Because I've given you a very specific challenge, which is to lay out the inference. Now,
I already did. I told you that.
Wait a second.
If it is the case, so look, I'm going to explain. Look, I'll explain it. I'll explain
JRobin,
it one more time.
1 sec. Let me finish my sentence.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen.
Are you just waiting so I get frustrated? So then you like
no. I'm actually going to make it very quick.
But I'm putting a condition on it before you give it. Please,
I am going to make this very quick.
To get this across.
I'm going to make this very quick.
Why hasn't JRobin been thrown backstage yet?
So look, this is very easy.
Oh man, let me say something before 1 second.
JRobin, please,
whoever that is, just please stop for a second. Okay,
hang on. JRobin, let AY.
Just 1 second. Whoever.
AY, this is my channel, bro. Nice to meet you. I'm trying to get him.
Okay, are you gonna let me talk to the guy or not?
Yes, as soon as I get done moderating.
Okay.
The
well,
fuck?
I don't
JRobin, if you pipe up
Okay.
again, knock that shit off. Let this guy finish his
I'm just
point.
trying. All that I want to say is this.
Just let it happen, Jefferson, because it's not going to last long anyways.
Okay, just 1 second. So,
God
sorry,
damn.
I'm getting a bit frustrated. Don't mean to be a dick to Jefferson. I'm sorry, but like I'm just a bit annoyed. Okay, so because I have JRobin here telling me, look, I've spelled out the inference, and effectively, like, you're condescending to me, right? You're talking to me like I'm too stupid to understand what you just said. Now, I don't mean to like flex or whatever, but like I actually do understand some of these concepts, like how formal logic works. I actually can sit here and draw out proofs for you, right? I can do that kind of thing. Now, I'm asking you not to just give the inference in natural language, because you're right. Yes, you have done that. My problem is that English language, natural language inferences can be very ambiguous, very unclear, and oftentimes a natural language inference, when you actually try to formalize it to get clear in an algebraic manner about what the structure of the argument is, just falls apart. Your argument, I'm not clear what the actual inference structure is. So can you spell it out and make sure to do so in a way that's formally valid? That's the further.
So I'll explain this. I'll explain this
Yeah.
one more time. Okay. Then if you want to give a closing statement, then you can, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay.
But JRobin,
you finish making your request. I'm gonna answer you. Okay. Then you can give a closing. Then you can give a closing. Then you can give a closing answer.
I don't know that you understand the request. When I say
I understand your request. Okay.
Yeah, wait,
all right.
okay. So just to be clear,
wait,
JRobin, 1 second.
So
when I say formal, when I say formal, I do. I'm trying to get an answer to the same question. I'm about to let you speak about it, but I just want to be clear about something.
So let me explain.
JRobin, it's not going to work.
You're gonna have a chance to make a closing
argument. Dude, look, I'm worse than Darth for this. I'd sooner get kicked from the thing than let you do this.
So
okay? I want to complete my sentence. I'm going to complete my sentence. Absolutely, I'm going to let you answer once I complete my sentence, JRobin.
You already did.
What? No, I didn't.
Yes,
I want to. No.
JRobin, stop it.
I will say I'm done. I will say I'm done when I'm done talking. Okay.
I'm not going to do this if you're not going to stop.
JRobin,
stop, JRobin.
I'm going to give my answer to you.
Let me get my words across. Okay. Now, I just want to be clear. When I say I want the argument in a way that's formal, I want you to give the structure algebraically. So actually, before even speaking in English, okay, before saying anything to me in English, just tell me the propositional variables and the connectors between them. What's the first premise?
Okay, I already explained it to you. I'm going to explain it to you one more time. And then after you do that, you can give a closing statement, and then we'll wrap this up, okay?
Yep, and I'll cut you off.
So the first argument is as follows, okay? That in the case of God, we're talking about God being the necessary precondition.
I'm going to cut you off. I want algebra.
So I'm not going to. So look, if you cut me off again, we're done. If you cut me off again, we're done.
We want algebra. Sorry,
then
go
we
ahead
need.
with
So look,
algebra.
can you moderate?
Okay. Hang on.
Can you moderate? So I'm not going to. So look, every time
I'm going to mute you both. I'm going to mute you both because here's what I'm going to do.
I will leave if muted. So just to be clear, JRobin,
yeah, we're not.
No, I'm not getting threatened on my own fucking show. All of you can knock that shit off. I'm tired and I'm pissed off at this debate bro bullshit. JRobin, fuck off back to Clubhouse. AY, it was nice to meet you. I like a lot of your content. I'm sorry I'm a dick right now, but I'm exhausted and this is really just kind of frazzling me. I'm not following any of this shit at all. And I think it's boring the shit out of everybody else in the channel. So I'm going to end this broadcast. Any of you that would like to talk afterward, great. Thank you everybody for watching. Like or dislike if you didn't like the fact that I went all fucking surly on it. My apologies to AY. My apologies to JRobin for being a dick. Normally I try not to do that, but getting over a flu, probably pushed this a little too late. I need sleep. So, but that's not going to keep me from gossiping after we're gone. We've been talking shit about all y'all in the live chat. Anyway, everybody have a great night. Take care of yourselves. Read some philosophy books or don't. Night, everybody.